Whenever you're ready.
What's with deep? Going deep. Chad and JT.
Oh, put me in the oven and say what up. This is Chad Kroger coming in with the Going Deep with Chad and JT podcast. Guys, before we begin, we are brought to you by Manscaped. Manscaped, thank you so much for keeping our trims pubed, for looking after our hogs, and making sure that our groinal regions are well maintained. Because when you go into a neighborhood and you see a nice lawn, you know that that guy cares. And when I talk about your lawn, I'm talking about your pubes. So
we're big on pube trimming.
I know.
Yeah.
I've heard that. For me, it's kind of a lost cause.
Oh, you just let it go.
Yeah.
Well, I can, but it's just like, they don't just throw out the nickname the Bear Jew. You just like, there's a lot of.
You earned it.
I earned it
through your pubes.
Yeah.
It's just like I'd burn through the motors on those things.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's all right. It's just a side effect.
Right.
And I don't mean to be needy, but I think we're in an unfortunate shot right now where we can't see Chad's face or my own.
Oh.
Do you want me to do the cut like this or
like
that?
Yeah, maybe we'll go back and forth between that and then the
Should I-
single on
Should I lean back?
on Mr. Roth, who is our guest today.
Thank
We'll
you.
probably
You're
have to
welcome.
reestablish that because this might get cut in the edit.
That's cool.
Yeah. Sorry, dudes.
That's okay.
Sorry, dog.
No, that's all good. Should I start all over?
I'll do a live cut today.
I think we can keep that part in and then we'll just cut in right after the fix.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where were we? So yeah,
Your
you know,
pubes.
your
We're talking pubes and chest hair. I gave up shaving. There was like when CW exploded, because I'm just like 100 years older than you guys.
Yeah.
And there was like some chest. Everyone was waxing their chests.
Yes.
And I was like, I'm gonna be the dude that just says enough, and we're not. There's no way. And it was Inglorious Bastards. I was like, I'm putting a stop to this now, and I'm gonna bring back chest hair. It was like a total conscious decision. And once that happened, then it's like, girls don't want you. They're like, okay, he's au naturel. It's fine.
I appreciate you, dog.
Yeah, I actually remember in Inglorious Bastards, I was in awe of your chest hair through the wife beater. When you first come out, it was like one of the first things I noticed.
Yeah, well, I'm a big fan of Teen Wolf and Teen Wolf 2.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I wanted to sort of have my own. I mean, look, there was a lot. We can get into this, but there had always been kind of like the three S's, like Sandler, Stiller, Seinfeld were like the holy trinity of like Jewish movies. But there was like funny, nebbishy, schlubby guys.
Yeah.
Or like kind of
Who's
nerdy.
the badass
and I was
person
like,
of that ilk?
It didn't exist. So Quentin wrote this character, and I was like, I'm going to get up at 4 a.m. and go to the gym for like an hour and a half before like I get picked up at 6 a.m. before shooting, and like lift 2 hours at night and eat every 90 minutes. I put on like 40 or 50 pounds of muscle.
What kind of lifting were you doing?
I was doing like heavy. I was doing squats. I would do whatever I could, but I would do like 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the morning, an hour at night. I was eating every 90 minutes. Like I don't have the body that's going to hold muscle. I have to eat like a machine. I'd go to like lunch and eat 4 pizzas. It was awesome.
Dude.
But I got up to like 205.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So what do you normally walk around at, like 160?
Well, I went from 160 to 205. Now I'm at about 185.
So you went from like film director size to like...
Well, film director size when I
Defensive
grew
end.
up was like
Varsity.
they had parkas and beards. Like they were
Right.
heavy. And then so I was like, I first wanted to change the image of film directors. I was like, what if we're like in shape? And because I know that the behind the scenes on DVDs were like a big thing. And I was like, what if I could, because when you're like a movie nerd, it's hard to meet girls. I was like, what if I look good on the behind the scenes and then people see what you look like, then you can actually, it was like total vanity. But I went and I was like, I'm going to be in shape. And so then a friend of mine from college was writing for like Men's Fitness magazine and was like, dude, I got to do this article on like most fit professionals. Can I just put you as most fit director? I'm like, sure.
Nice.
So I sent him
Peter
like
Berg pissed?
So you don't even know. To this day, Tarantino's like, I'm taking your title. Like people just like, all these people are like, I'm going to win your most fit director title.
Right,
yeah.
And I remember on the set of my first movie, Cabin Fever, I went in the makeup trailer and I started like, I was getting makeup on and the actors were like, what the fuck are you doing? I was like, well, I don't know. I feel like I have a pimple in my eyes. And they're like, yeah, but you're not in front of the camera. I'm like, yeah, but there's behind the scenes and I want to look good for the behind the scenes.
Right.
And then I remember like one of the Saw directors was like, dude, I watched the Cabin Fever behind the scenes. I was so fucking mad at you. I'm like, God damn, Eli. It's like, the guy doesn't look tired. He looks in shape.
Yeah.
And he's like, and my girlfriend was like, why can't you look like it totally worked.
Right.
Razzing. So it's like, if your movie isn't as good or doesn't make as much money, at least you have that on them.
I like that. Yeah, I would like to direct a movie and then be like, best part about it was the director's bronze.
Yes, exactly. Like, if you got like, if there was an Oscar for best bronze.
Yeah.
And you won that. Like that's sort of all I want. I wanted
I want to do like a Woody Allen movie, although it's probably a little controversial, and just get him yoked. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, because no one's seen Woody with
him like roided
with,
out.
Like, real girth on him. Yeah,
No, they haven't.
Throwing around kettlebells.
Yeah, get him on the kettlebell regime, and then do some Muay Thai with him, and just.
Yeah, he just like walks through a doorway. He can't get through it.
Yeah.
Like all the physical comedy that you could do with Woody Allen if he was ripped.
Yoked. He might be less afraid of everything too if he had more size on him.
Probably. But I think people might be more afraid of him.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. I wonder how he would have turned out if he had.
We could have Roman
kettlebells.
Polanski as the bad guy.
Right.
We get Roman all jacked up.
Yeah.
And then Woody, and they'll just be like.
The name of the movie would be called Problematic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's pretty much the name of every movie ever made
Yeah,
before
now.
2015. So.
Yeah. I watched Knock Knock, and it was kind of
thanks.
like prescient about a lot of what came to pass afterwards.
Yeah, we made that movie like 5 years ago. It's crazy.
And that movie felt very personal to me.
Oh, all my movies are personal in a way. Everything
Yeah.
starts with a thought. Like Cabin Fever, I had gotten this infection in my face. And I was like, what if I shaved? And I started shaving chunks of my face off. And I was like, and it just became this obsession of like, you can be totally healthy, go to the gym. I don't smoke, like nothing. And this thing gets in your face and your face is falling off.
Yeah.
So then Hostel, I was like, I had read this thing about where you could go and pay $10,000 to walk into a room and put a bullet in someone's head to know what it felt like to kill somebody. And I was like, I can't tell if this is real or not, but that seems real. Like someone would do that. If you were super rich and you were bored of like drugs and hookers and everything lost its thrill, like, ooh, what's it like to kill someone? Like I could fully see guys doing that. So
My friends told me I looked like the actor who did that monologue in that movie.
well, Rick Hoffman
Yeah.
from Suits, a
Yeah.
little bit more hair. Rick would love that. Rick would be very happy to hear that.
I heard. Was that a real thing in like Asia somewhere? Because like my buddies and I were fans of the Hostels in college, and we were like, yeah, this actually happened. Like
We found a website
Yeah.
that was in the Philippines,
Right.
where you could pay, and apparently the person like volunteered for it. Like, I'm really poor, I want to get money for my family, like just come hunt me. Now, of course, obviously you'd walk in the room and be like, you agreed to this, right? No, you know.
Yeah.
So I thought, what if I do make a documentary about this? That was my first instinct, was to
Whoa.
do a doc. And then I thought, well, anybody who really does this, there's no way they're going to actually let me get close. And then if they do, then what if they just want to kill me? So I based it on that. I never found out if it was real, but then I started looking at history and looking at what people do when they're pretty certain that no one's looking, they won't get caught. And you look at what people, like then I looked at the photos of Lindy, England, and all the stuff that was going on in Abu Ghraib prison, and the U.S. soldiers like piling up bodies and
Right.
throwing up gang signs and photos. And you're like, wow.
Having a good time.
Having a good old time. Like,
Yeah.
look what you do when you can do that to someone with absolutely no repercussions.
Yeah.
And you're certain you won't get caught. I thought, yeah, there are people that would for sure do that.
Do you think they were even worried about getting caught, or do you think they even thought like, oh, even if we get caught, people won't mind because the people we're doing it to are beneath us from their vantage point?
I don't know. I think so. I mean, I've talked to people who were like, I was like, are snuff films still real? Like, how do snuff films work? And like, do people still do that? And someone had told me that they talked to someone who like did it and did snuff films and took me through the whole process. And I was like, yeah, for sure. And they're just like, they're like, okay, if you go from London to Amsterdam, you have to take the ferry, not the train, because they don't have cameras. You bring your own camera, you pay someone, and there's a lot of Algerian immigrants, and they'll just kidnap one. The gangsters will just kidnap one, have them in a warehouse. You show up, you set up the camera, you like film yourself doing whatever the fuck you want to them. You take the camera, you leave the body there, and you go. It's like people, and now I can't prove that, but it sounds pretty real.
It
That's
sounds
terrifying.
So all that,
Yeah.
and then like Green Inferno, I just saw a lot of kids. I remember when I was at NYU, there were these girls that were starving themselves at Columbia University. We used to go up to Columbia to like meet girls at Barnard, because everyone was like a freak at NYU and shaving their head and piercing their
Right.
nose, which at the time was controversial. And I remember going, my friend went to Columbia, and I was like, wow, this is like real college. I go to like a freaky art school, and this is...
You were at NYU?
I was at NYU
Okay.
in Tisch in the film school, and
Did you have any heavy hitters in your class with you?
Right ahead of me was like half a year or a year ahead of me was Todd Phillips and Brett Ratner. So you heard,
cool.
I remember hearing stories. Todd Phillips was
G.G. Allen doc?
I heard stories. Kids were coming out of the class throwing up. Kids were like, this kid filmed someone like eating their own shit and throwing shit on the audience.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is it? And it was Christine Choi's documentary class with Todd Phillips doing Hated. And I remember seeing that movie, and I remember kids like who were in the class with Todd being like, this is insane. So yeah, then like from my class was like Andres Hines, wrote Black Swan, a few other people, but the big ones like 2 years ahead of me was M. Night, and then Brett Ratner did Money Talks at 26, and then Todd Phillips obviously with Road Trip. He's had the craziest career.
So you would go up to Barnard to...
So we go up to Barnard to like meet girls, and I remember there were these girls that were starving on the front of the lawn. And I was like, what are they doing? And it's like, well, they're starving because the janitors don't have health insurance. And I was like, but I don't understand that.
Oh,
And they're
that's
like,
nice of
And
them,
they're
though.
like, well, there's no war, so they just kind of need a cause. And they're like, the theory was that the girls were bulimic. So no one wants to be like, these girls have eating disorders. They're like, oh, they're heroes.
Did they get the guys covered?
I don't know. They looked really cold and hungry. I have no idea what
That's true. It'd be a hard thing to do in the winter in New York.
But then when I was writing Green Inferno, which always starts with another thought, which was Stone Cannibals Get the Munchies.
Right.
I'd wanted to do a cannibal movie, like an old school Italian cannibal movie, and follow the conventions. What starts in New York, goes to the jungle, back to New York at the end. That's like the trope of all these old, because they're kind of considered the bottom of the barrel, sleaziest, like least respected horror movies, and I love them.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. People
What's the
don't-
hierarchy?
Well,
Oh, you love Italian horror, right?
love it. My
Yeah.
favorite.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed. So I used to watch Cannibal Holocaust, and kind of before the internet, I was like, is this real? Did they really kill people? There's a girl that's impaled with a spike that's going up her, that like comes out her mouth. And I was like, how did they do that? And the director had been brought up on murder charges and had to like bring in the actors and prove that it was makeup effects. That's how controversial the movie was. So I was like, I need to do a movie like that. And I actually thought, like, you can't do that today because there's nothing left. The Amazon's gone. I was like, oh, that's it. It's going to be, but I started seeing kids like, it was really Coney 2012. I wrote the script and Coney 2012 happened. Everyone's like, Coney 2012, Coney 2012. And you just saw like Justin Bieber, Rihanna, like everyone on the planet tweeting about this thing. And the government was like, we know Joseph Coney. Like, we've been tracking him for years. Everyone's like, Joseph Coney is child slaves and he rapes them. I get it, like, but it's the laziest form of
It's like how
activism.
fashion.
Yeah.
It's like it gets fashionable to
Yeah.
like believe in this cause, right?
It's also, they don't even give, they care, but they don't care enough to do anything more than push a button on their phone just to show everyone that they're not like a selfish asshole before they go back to like
Right.
flaunting their money or whatever they're doing, which is fine. I'm not criticizing that. But I just remember thinking like, this is like a new thing. It was sort of before the term social justice warrior came on. I was like, this is like slacktivism. This is the laziest form of activism and virtue signaling. And everyone just, no one cares about the cause. They care about being recognized for it. So I was like, I want to write a movie about kids like that who go in the Amazon to like save a tribe, even though they don't really care about it. They just care about trending on Twitter. They care about, so that's why every time they're arrested, they're like, all of them are like posing for photos, just so excited that they're going to get their photo taken being arrested. And then of course they crash in the jungle that they save, and they're cannibals, and they're just like, oh, food.
Yeah.
And they're like, but we're your saviors. And they're like, fuck you. And they just eat them and put them in ovens.
Right.
And then I thought, well, if one of them had weed that had like, they've been doing ayahuasca and got like crazy, like laced weed, then what if you took, I was just sitting there thinking, I was probably stoned when I did it. Like, what if your friend died, like if you gave the cannibals weed, then they would get the munchies, and that would make it even worse. So that was basically the entire movie was an excuse to do that scene with stoned cannibals getting the munchies.
Yeah.
And then Knock Knock, I was engaged to Lorenza, and I was just like, and there was a movie called Death Game that my friend Colleen Camp, who I produced it with, was in. And I was like, this could be an awesome after going to the Green Inferno, where we shot in the Amazon, we shot with a tribe that these people had never seen cameras. We had to conceptually explain to this village what a movie was. No electricity. I mean, it was 4 hours of traveling. You drive by like Land Rover, get in the boat, 2 hours in the boat in the village. And we had to I showed them iPhones for the first time.
How did you have like a locations manager go out there?
We did. And the village speaks two languages. Speak Quechua and Spanish. So you had someone who speaks Quechua and someone who speaks Spanish. Like the older people speak Spanish. The older speak Quechua. The kids want to speak Spanish. They didn't want to learn Quechua because they want to be like in touch with the modern world.
Sure.
But they're so isolated. And they're like farmers. They don't look like they do in the movie. But we went and we were like, and we had to basically go to the village elders and say, can we shoot here? And so I had the Peruvian producer, you do it with the Peruvians.
Yeah.
And the Peruvian producer's like, well, look, we're going to have to explain to these people what a movie is. And I go, how do we do that? They're like, we've come out here with a generator and a television, and we show them a movie for the first time. So like 3 weeks later, he's like,
Whoa,
I'll
what
do it.
movie did they show?
Well, he called me 3 weeks later. He's like, we got permission from the village. They said yes. And I was like, that's amazing. What did you show them? Like E.T., Wizard of Oz? And he goes, no, Cannibal Holocaust. And I was like, what? And he has a photo of him, like, and I was like, the kids saw it. He's like, no. They thought it was a comedy. I go, why would you show children, like, their only conception of what a movie is like slicing dicks off and like ripping a fetus out with a hand abortion and stabbing a stone. I was like, that's their idea of what a movie is.
What movie would you show them?
I mean, I would have started with Wizard of Oz and worked my way to Cannibal Holocaust.
Jingle all the way, I think.
Caddyshack
That'd be
too.
good.
Yeah.
But the kids, they got it, and they all wanted to be part of it, and they all wanted, like, the kids, like, it was so fun shooting this village. Like, the kids were so fun, and they would come up to me, and, like, my translator, my assistant director would be like, boss, the kids, they have a snake. They caught a snake, a python. They want it, and I was like, and they come up, and the kid's holding a python. They're like, it's a baby. So there's like a baby python. This 5-year-old kid's holding it. Mm-hmm. And I go, well, what were they thinking? They're like, well, the kids think it would be funny if they throw it in the cage where the Americans are. And I was like, that's actually a really good idea.
Yeah.
So I knew that some of the girls were fighting, and I was like, how am I going to get them to take a python to the face? And I went up to one girl. I go, I have the best scene in the movie. And they were like, what? And they were like, she's like, what? I'm like, what if we take this python? It's like this will be the scene everyone talks about. She's like, what? I'm like, what if we take a real python and we drop it on this other girl? And she goes, no, I want to do it. I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. That could work. But then both girls were like, everyone started fighting for the python. So we basically, like, we're dangling the python. We're about to shoot it. And the girls go, can that thing bite? And we're like, yeah, but it's a baby. It's not really going to hurt. Like, but it could actually bite you, though. We're like, yeah. So we're like, okay, so if the camera's here, like, we tell the kids, like, just drop the python behind their heads. So it'll look like on camera like it's right on top of them. Mm-hmm. And the kid's like, yeah, okay. And I go, action. And the kid just goes, whap. Slaps them in the face with a python. One take. And if you freeze frame it, the thing's like, the fangs are out. This thing's like this far from one of the girl's eyeball. That's what the shoot was like.
Yeah.
It was amazing. There was, like, our production designer had to go to the village. Looked a lot like it does in the movie.
Yeah.
But there was some corrugated metal that we had to build a cage. Like, a little bit of art direction had to be done. So our production designer, Marici, she goes to the village and she just lives there because it's like going back and forth with the boat. There's no way it's going to happen. And all the village worked on the movie. A lot of them are farmers. They, like, were out of work. They were old. They were so happy that they were getting work. We're paying them more in 3 weeks than they would make in a year. So the whole village is, like, super into the movie. Mm-hmm. And they're building the cage and they're doing all this stuff. And then when she gets it ready for us to shoot, and then we show up, and then she's going to go to Santiago, Chile, where we're doing the New York interiors. And the whole village is like, we have a gift for you. And so she's like, everyone's like her last night. They gather around and like, we've got you something. She's like, you didn't have to do that. They're like, no, you're one of us. We love you. We have a gift for you. And they brought her a baby.
Whoa.
And she's like,
to
what?
Keep?
Like a 2-year-old.
Nice.
Just to have.
And she's like, yeah.
Very generous of the mother.
Yeah. I mean, she was like, I have a boyfriend in an apartment in Santiago. Like, I can't refuse. I'm not refusing your baby. But let's just say it's my baby, but it's going to live here with its, like, his village mommy and daddy. And then I can come and visit it. Yeah. So that was the vibe of Green Inferno. It was crazy. Like, our first, I mean, I'm rambling, but, like, shut me up if I'm talking too much. But, like, our first day of shooting, I was like, we got to get the big scene where they're like, the kids are all the Americans are kidnapped, and they're like, they've been darted. Their plane has crashed. They're like, the blow darts. They wake up, and it starts on Lorenza's face, and she's just looks up, like, she's like a little thing over the trees, and another one, and all of a sudden, like an army, they just come over the hill, like screaming and just pulling at their hair. It's just total chaos. So I have 120 villagers in, like, war paint. I have the kids tied up. Shooting in Peru, it's like, thankfully we have like 20 minutes of sun, because it would be like pouring rain then sun. Right. 100 degrees, 110 degrees. We're in the jungle, and I'm like, I got like the machete. I'm like ready to go, and I'm like ready, and we just see, like, we hear this noise, and I'm like, what's going on? And these 2 pontoon boats pull up, and they're like Christian missionaries, and they're from a super church in Texas, and they've been going, like, down the river, village to village, converting them to Christianity. And they pull up to our village, and they see it's like Kurtz's village. I put, like, spikes with heads on it, and all the villagers and the Americans tied up, and the dead bodies everywhere, and, like, the Americans screaming, and all the kids, like, all the people in, like, this kind of sad, like, war paint, and they're just like, they start screaming. They're just like, they start singing songs about Jesus. They're like, this is it. We found it. We found Satan's village. They're like, the devil is here, and we're here. Like, the whole trip was worth it. And then, of course, I'm like so excited. I'm like, we got to film this. We got to film this confrontation with the missionaries. And they pull out of their boat, and this guy from Texas starts stomping around. And then someone's like, oh, it's not the devil. It's Eli Roth making a horror movie. And they were so fucking angry. They're like, well, we're going to fuck up your shooting. So they sit in the river blocking our shot.
Oh, really?
And after 5 minutes, it was like 110 degrees. They're like, screw this.
Do you have a PA trying to...
They're like, everyone had to... I had 5 people holding me back going, please let me film this. And they're like, Eli, this is a cultural thing. You've got to let the village handle it. And the village went out and said, please come back.
Oh, nice.
Shooting. Yeah.
How long were you on location?
We were 5 weeks in Peru.
Wow.
You like shooting out of LA?
I love it. You know, I did Cabin Fever in the Woods in North Carolina. I had a great time. Hostel 1 I did in Prague, which was the most fun. Yeah. It was life imitating art. I mean, we would like...
I feel like it'd be easier to focus too if you don't have like all the distractions of...
You don't have any distractions. Also, like, there wasn't social media. No, people aren't texting, but the time difference is great. Because it's like when you're in Prague, you're like 9 hours ahead.
Right.
So everyone's kind of asleep. And then maybe at like 7 p.m., your phone starts ringing. And then it's like, there's like a window of 1 hour where people can get you on the phone. And the nice thing about shooting, that's why I like shooting in Chile. I shot in Chile, Iceland. I did a movie in China with RZA from Wu-Tang, with a movie called Man with the Iron Fist.
I saw it.
Yeah.
That was so fun.
And Russell Crowe.
Russell Crowe.
Yeah.
We had the best time doing that with Batista. Like, RZA was amazing.
Yeah.
RZA's like...
Well, he's like a genius, too, right?
He really is. He's like... And I love him. And I did it just because to be around him and because I love him. We spent like a year together writing it.
That's awesome.
And it was just so funny because I was like the nerdy white Jew from the suburbs, and he's RZA. I mean, but it's like... But he's so funny, and he loves movies, and he's so knowledgeable.
You're from Boston?
Yeah, Newton, Mass.
Okay. Is that like Boston?
It's not like fucking masshole kid. It's not like I don't have like a fucking wicked accent or nothing, kid. But like,
I heard you on a podcast
kids.
years ago talking about like how you had buddies who had the little bats that they would give out at Red Sox
Dude,
games
everybody
in
had a
their
fucking
car.
dude. You have a fucking bat in your car, dude. She was like, "What's that, buddy? You got a fucking problem, kid?" I remember going to the movies with like my friend's dad, and there was some guy in the parking lot who wouldn't move, and he like honked a little, and the guy took out a tire iron. He's like, "What's that, buddy? You want to get fucking wrapped in the head with a tire iron?" He's like, "No, sir." And we're in the back seat. We're like, "Oh, he's like your dad's gonna get beaten to death over parking at the movies, seeing Superman 2 or something."
This guy took my parking spot at Tony Roma's one time, and he had 2 kids. Like little kids, and I rolled down the window. I was like, "Yo, dude, you took my parking spot." He goes, "Yeah, so what? You want to fight about it?" I was like, "Dude, good modeling for your children right there."
Well, that's Boston, man. That's why I'm 3,000 miles away.
Yeah,
I do love my mass holes, but yeah, it's nice to live here.
Yeah.
So Prague, it's fun shooting. Shooting in Chile was amazing. That's why we did Knock Knock in Chile. It's great.
Oh, you shot Knock Knock in Chile?
Yeah.
Because the opening, you have the Hollywood sign. So
yeah, we did some photography here, but we shot most of it. We found it really doubles for California. For Calabasas in LA. It's crazy how well Santiago and Chile does. Same coastline.
Yeah.
A lot of the architecture is similar.
That movie felt personal to me, like in the way that it's like hard to be a dude, and then like it felt like an affair condensed down into like one night or something like that. Because those girls are crazy, so they go through all like the permutations of how like a relationship can go bad, and then it goes to hyper extremes. But I related to it because I was like, man, I kind of see where this dude's coming from. I want
it to be like every guy's. Thank you. I wanted it to be like every guy's. Your fantasy and your worst nightmare. My
roommate came in, and I know, your wife was your ex-wife. Was
Lorenza. Yeah.
So I don't mean this to be disrespectful, but my roommate came in and I explained the story to him, and then he goes, "But did Keanu sleep with the women?" I go, "He did." He goes, "Nice."
Yeah, that's exactly what you want. No, I mean, we want it to be like, it's, that's the whole idea of free pizza.
Right.
No, dude, if a pizza shows up at 3 a.m., someone's like, "Did you order pizza?" Nope, wrong guy. Okay, well, here. Yeah. No guy will say, that's what it is. And that's when it's
It made me wonder. I was like, is there any guy who would say no to it? Because I'd like to think I would say no, but then
no.
Yeah.
If you can get away with it, no. And that's the point, is that these girls are almost looking for the guy that will say no. They're looking, it's their point.
It would make them happy to find that person.
That's their whole game, is that these girls would just like to find the one guy that will say no, because they believe that all men are absolute pieces of shit from whatever abuse they've suffered in their life. And that even Keanu, with all the photos and all the family, it's all just a mask. And that was the fun with Keanu. And I think he's so great and so underrated in his performance in the movie. It's taking him as being like the nice, sweet dad and just basically reducing him to a feral creature. But also they play into all the things that aren't cool. It's also how, like, when he's a dad, he's sort of third, like the kids, it's Father's Day and the wife's just taking them away. The wife's art dominates the house. and he's just like, yes, dear. He's kind of like relegated to the corner. Everyone's like, you're all the things that you think are cool. Like you were a DJ in the '90s, and you're like relegated.
DJ scene, the scene where he DJs was probably my favorite scene in the movie because you really do. You're like, oh, he is cool.
Yes.
And he's good at DJing.
Yes.
And then he starts to believe that he's cool again while he's DJing.
And these girls are like, no, you are cool.
And they
you are
validate
hot.
him.
That's exactly it. That's the whole seduction is that they're like, oh my God, you're so smart. You're like a myth buster. You know how to fix an iPhone. You know these. And he's kind of like a dad. And we kept saying, the fun with the movie was like, it was like this chess game where his mouth keeps saying no and his feet keep saying yes. So we did this kind of musical chairs. And we worked on it a while with Ana de Armas, who's doing amazing now. She's a Bond girl now.
Oh,
really?
Yeah,
Wow.
Anna's a Bond girl, and she's playing Marilyn Monroe in a movie for Netflix. Yeah, she's doing great. So, and Lorenza's on Penny Dreadful. So, it was a great cast, and we really rehearsed on the girls, like just keep kind of going up to him and touching his hand, and him moving to this chair, and then moving there, and they just keep having physical contact, and he just keeps saying
and
no.
he's being good, but he likes it.
But he loves it because these girls are like tapping into that sexual part, where it's also that thing in relationships where, you know, you start to take each other for granted. And I know couples that like there's no sex anymore. It's like they're a unit, they're best friends, they're partners, they have kids. But like in the beginning, he's like trying to get the wife like to have sex, and then the kids come in. It's like it's just all his frustrations just boil up. I also like the sort of meta idea that the girls almost never existed, and that he just was like all that side of him that he just kept burying just erupted, and he just went crazy and just smashed everything in his house.
The thing that you referenced to, the free pizza, like I love the way you shot that monologue because I think you only cut it once.
Yeah, I
to
just
get,
let
like,
him rant.
reaction.
Yeah,
but it's just a single on him the whole time, and he really is like sad and hilarious. There's so many different components to what he's saying, and you really do feel for it. And I haven't seen Keanu Reeves do another scene like that.
Thank
basically.
you.
Yeah.
Well, look, I think that, you know, we were kind of bummed about the release, that it didn't get kind of the proper treatment that we were all hoping for, but it's nice that people have watched it, and I think his performance is really, Keanu's great.
He's like, you fucked me.
He's like, you suck my cock, you fucking suck my cock, what did you want? You fucking... Like, and that's the crazy thing, and they're just
I started
looking
cracking
at him.
up. I was dying laughing.
No, it's fun. It's fun.
I mean, even Tenet, that was like...
Oh, yeah.
I think all your movies have a lot of that in it, right?
I love dark humor. I like when humor gets very, very uncomfortable. I mean, like, for me, Green Inferno is like, the stone cannibals get the munchies. They attack Daryl Spar from Spy Kids. Daryl gets, and they do it, and they're fucking fighting. They're all like eating, and then like while the crowd is ripping apart, a little girl runs away with a leg. Dude, she got the cookie from the cookie jar.
Throughout that whole movie, I was like, because like I'd heard about it before, but I found myself like cracking up. I'm like, what does it say about me?
No, it's great.
Yeah, there's like so many funny parts in there. Yeah,
I like humor.
And the activist too. And it's just, I was dying.
Well, that was like with the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Like
I love comical violence.
I love that movie. I love that movie so much.
Yeah.
I was sorry, Leia Lorenza played the wife in the end of the movie. She plays the Italian.
Oh, really?
Francesca Capucci. Who
oh, right.
Leo, yeah.
Is it hard directing your wife?
Look, Lorenza and I were kind of like partners. We made this movie together called Aftershock that our friend Nicholas directed, and I wrote with him, and I acted in, and we cast Lorenza in it. And it was 7 weeks of nights, and we had the best fucking time shooting that movie. It was a party.
Yeah.
And Lorenza and I really clicked, and her English was perfect. I was like, wait, you're Chilean? I thought you were American. But she'd lived in America when she was like 12 and had been bullied so bad she lost her accent. She watched Blue Crush every day to learn to talk like.
It's a good movie.
It's a great movie.
And a good message, too.
I love Blue Crush. In fact, I remember when I was sound mixing Cabin Fever, I was like, we have to end early today. And I went right to the Grove and I watched Blue Crush.
Dude, good
place to watch it, too. The Grove's wonderful.
I love...
Nothing bad has ever happened at the Grove.
Nothing. It's fountains. It's manufactured happiness. I'm a sucker for it.
It's the capital from like the Hunger Games.
Exactly.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so working together, there's like a shorthand. I mean, we trust each other. And there is a little bit like if we get in an argument, we try not to like fight in front of the kids, you know? And we were engaged for Knock Knock. I mean, Green Inferno, we were like Aftershock, we were flirting. And then we got she moved to LA. Then I directed her in Hemlock Grove, my Netflix show, and I killed her off by a werewolf in that. And then, which was fun, really disgusting. And then Green Inferno. And in Green Inferno, I was like, once you guys have diarrhea in the jungle together, it's like, that's it. There's no more barriers.
You're fused.
Yeah, like you handle that. And she's so cool and such a trooper and so fun and has like just the most amazing energy. I was like, let's just keep making movies together. And so I wrote Knock Knock for her, and then we found Anna. Colleen Camp called me. She's like, I found this girl. She's incredible. She's literally just off the plane from Spain. she might not speak English, but I think she's great for the movie. And I met her, and I was like, oh my God, this girl's going to be a star. So she came, and then we were lucky enough to get Keanu. And then, after Knock Knock, we're like, okay, let's take a break. I didn't want to just like put her in Death Wish. And then House of the Clock on Its Walls. The part was right where I had her play the mom for that. It was my kids' movie that I did with Jack Black and Cate Blanchett. And so we had a great time. Like we divorced. We kind of split up while I was editing House of the Clock, but we're still friends. We're just like, look, we're not. I mean, she was young. She was 22 when we met, and we're like 28, 20. You're a different person. And I always sort of knew, like, we kind of had the philosophy, like, if we feel, the door's always open. Like, we're in it together, but neither of us are trapped. And, like, let's do this as friends. So we also want to keep working together. We're like, if we ever want a future where we can, like, make movies together, which we would like to, then we have to, like, split before we have kids and before we part. So we did, and it's cool. And then I was like so happy. Like I went to the set of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood when she was shooting her scene with the police, and when they're fighting, and when Brad like kills the Manson gang. Dude, I was there on set with them. It was awesome. It was just, and I was just so proud of her. I was like, I remember meeting you as like a girl from Chile who quit journalism school, and now you're like doing scenes with Brad Pitt. It was pretty awesome.
What's it like watching Tarantino direct? Or working with him too on Inglorious.
I mean, Inglorious was one of the greatest opportunities of my life. It was just like I directed 3 movies, and then I thought, like, what if I could go back to like grad school to really relearn directing via acting? Like what is the opportunity to sort of watch the master up close? Yeah. And he'd been telling me about it when he was writing the script. I was like his Jewish fact checker. He'd call me. He's like, okay, I got the question. He's like, but did you give a Nazi absolution if it meant you could end the war? And I was like, Quentin, I gotta be honest with you. I didn't know what the word absolution meant until I was 25, because the Jews are money lenders, and we collect interest on everything, including anger. And we're more pissed about shit from 2,000 years ago today than we were 2,000 years ago. I was like, if there was a Nazi and you told me, and I'm not kidding, on the street, that person's a Nazi, I wouldn't hesitate to kill him. I would slit his throat. I would bash his head in with a baseball bat. It's like, these people tried to eradicate us off the planet. The only reason I am here is because my grandfather got out of Poland. That's it. And it was before the war. All of his relatives gone. Like once everyone in that side from Europe has been liquidated, there's like, that was it. There was no, it's not like, oh, I forgive them. It was a mistake. Anyone that did that, you're just programmed in that. Like these people are going to kill you. They're going to put you in ovens. So he's like, okay, great, I got it. And I was like, if you really want a good insight, I was like, come to my Passover Seder. Like that'll be like kind of a Jewish experience. We tell the story of Passover and when the Jews were slaves and when they left Egypt, but we always relate it to the Nazis. It's like all my parents did. We always, Nazi talk is like what every Jewish family talks about at dinner eventually. So he came and he's like, I think, okay, I got it. I know how I'm going to end the movie. And then I remember when we were shooting, he's like, I was thinking maybe Donnie shoots Hitler. And I was like, because he hadn't written the last chapter yet. It sort of roughly had it. He knew we were going to blow up the theater. But he's like, I was thinking that maybe like Donnie busts in and shoots Hitler. And I was like, I wouldn't shoot Hitler. He's like, you wouldn't? I was like, no. I would stand over his head with a machine gun and like unload it until I physically saw his head disintegrate. And then I would stomp on it to make sure zombie Hitler didn't come back. And he's like, that's what we're doing. And then, working with Quentin was amazing. Like I really relearned directing through him because I was used to like, I sort of have shot lists and I'll go on location and work with my DP. But what Quentin does is his time with his actors is the most valuable time. And the first day there was like all 10 bastards and Brad and Quentin. And he's like, so tell me about your character. And I had to talk in character for about like an hour about my backstory, who my dad was. And he's like, what'd you think when you joined the Bastards? What'd you think when Aldo said this? What'd you think of that? What'd you think when Stiglitz joined the Bastards? Like every single piece of backstory. And you had to talk. And there was one guy who was like, oh, I thought I was just an extra. I didn't have any lines. And Quentin's like, what do you mean? You didn't think about any of this? He's like, no, I just thought you wanted me to be an extra. And that guy wasn't there the next day. Wow. Down to 9. That was it.
I heard. Go ahead. I heard the story about that one scene in the theater. So with the smoke, you can kind of see Shoshana's face or whatever. That they were trying to make like a devil face out of it. And they had like 2 chances to do it. And the first time, it was like this special effect. And they did it like perfectly. And the camera op was like, I forgot to hit record. And then Tarantino was like, it happens. Is that true?
Wow, I forgot about that.
Did you know that? Yeah.
Yeah, you know that.
Were you there for that?
I was not. I was there, but I wasn't
Yeah.
in the theater for that because that was a separate stage we built to burn.
Right.
And you could only do it like twice a day, and I was there. We almost died when we shot my scene because they had tested fire, but they had never tested it with the seats and the flags. So all of a sudden they're like, oh, it won't get closer than 20 feet. And then while we're shooting, it got like right over our heads. And you can see in the shot this swastika drops. That wasn't supposed to happen. That was 6 steel cables. It got up to 2,000 degrees and it just liquefied and dropped. So we were like covered in fire gel and there was a guy at my feet with a fire extinguisher, but I was up on this metal structure and they're like another 30 seconds, the whole thing would have crashed down. There was no, like you guys would have been done. So I remember like I came out of that. It was so much harder than I thought. The gun, I couldn't put gel on my hands because for the clip changes and my hands were just like shaking and burning and I had one little crack on my neck that missed and it was like blistering and I came out and Quentin just looks at me and gives me the thumbs up and I nod. I had my hands in ice buckets at 0 degrees. I had an ice cloth on me and I passed out. I was like from adrenaline, I just went unconscious. And then for like 2 days I couldn't use my hands because they were just they were burning.
So does he shoot the script pretty much as he has it
Yeah.
written, or is there a lot of evolution during the filming process?
Quentin's very particular about his dialogue.
Okay.
I know him well enough that I could go off script if I had an idea, but you got to nail exactly, like there's a rhythm to his dialogue and a pattern. He doesn't want people going off it.
Right.
And so what we'll do is like for the bat scene, you know, we'll run the scene. And so we went out to like the location where I come out of the cave with the bat. And it's like, well, where would you bring this guy? If you got him, okay, he's going to bring him over. And we just kind of rehearsed it. We rehearse it. And then we get it. And then like the morning of, you kind of come in before you get in your costumes and you run the scene. He's like, do it again, do it again, do it again. So you're running it like a play. And then you just act it like over and over and over. And then he takes a lens finder with Bob Richardson and he looks and he's just like, and he just starts to find the shots. It's like he's sort of got an idea, but he's like, what if we put this here? Okay, I feel like, Brad, can we move you just a little bit this way and there? But the camera's motivated by the actors who are motivated by the script. And Quentin's like, the script is the DNA.
Oh, so the actors kind of almost create the blocking through
Yes.
their instincts
Yes.
of how the scene should go?
Yes,
That's pretty amazing.
that's how it starts.
Okay.
And then Quentin will adjust from there. And sometimes it's evident, like, okay, they've got walk in and blow the shotgun, but other
Right.
scenes you're just figuring it out. It's not like, okay, you go here, you go here, you go there. It's like nobody's there, not a single person on the crew. It's like, fuck off, go have
Blank.
a cigarette. It's just you and the actors. And so I started doing that. And that's what I did on Knock Knock. So Green Inferno, it's like just me and the actors figuring it out. And then you bring in the DP, then you bring in the stand-ins, then you bring in the rest of the crew, and then you have your shots and you know how it's going to go. But that's how Quentin operates. He just like kind of gets he wants to see it real in the space first. And then like with the bat, I said, this guy's like, if he's putting on a show for the guys, then he's going to brag. And I want to rant. I'd love to do kind of like a Boston themed rant. And luckily our script supervisor was from Springfield, Mass. So I could be like, went to fucking Lansdowne Street. He went, yeah, on that one. I'm like speaking some alien tongue. And Marty's like, nope, I got it. It's like all period correct. I couldn't say like fucking dude.
Did you reference Ted Williams or something
Yeah,
like that?
I want to say Teddy fucking Ballgame, but he said you got to say Teddy Williams. Teddy Ballgame's too obscure. I was like, all right, but so that was my compromise in the scene. But yeah, no, he let me fucking fucking Williams went
Right.
yeah on that all the way to fucking Lansdowne Street. He went yeah on that one, kid. The crowd's going fucking Fenway's going wild for fucking Teddy fucking Williams.
Right.
So that all that kind of classic Boston ranting that Quentin would let me do, but I have a special relationship with him. He's like. He's like a brother.
Was it kind of cathartic shooting those scenes?
It's amazing.
Like with the bat, with that, like.
He kept me like a tiger in a cage for like 5 days. He would be like, okay, we're getting your scene today. And I was in the back and I had them set up a heavy bag for me and like weights and a pull-up bar.
Right.
So I was just like hitting and just like trying not to burn myself out, but trying to like stay like dirty and loose and fucking jacked up for it. And also I knew that was the scene. I was in a tank top and the rest of the scene I was going to have wardrobe on. So it's like if I was going to be ripped, it had to be for that scene. So I would just like I would tell the AD like give me like you got to give me like a 2-minute warning before we roll camera. And they would roll and I would just like fucking hang from the pull-up bar, just like hang toes, like fucking screaming and sweating. And then I would just warm up and then like finally by the end I just like went crazy and I blew out my voice. I mean I have no training for that how to scream, but everyone had tricks. Gummy was like, gummy baron. So like take gummy bears, bring your voice back, which is crazy. I didn't know. And then so, it felt amazing to do it. But I remember it's that moment before, it's like you have this knot in your stomach. It's kind of like before I do a decapitation, you get like this nervous energy and you want it to go right. But when I had to shoot Hitler in the face, we shot in the fire stage, but then we went on a regular stage with a flame bar. So when we're shooting my close up of that slow motion, I was like, this has to be like the most intense thing. Like, this is all this guy's want to do. This is revenge for every person he knows has been killed. And, but you're friends with everyone. So like Geraldine was the camera assistant from South America who does the clap. And she's like, what's with you, Mr. Bad Mood? Right. Oh, Mr. Eli, Mr.
Like,
Moody actor. I'm like,
yeah.
Geraldine, I'm about to shoot Hitler. Oh, sorry, I forget. I forget because you're my friend.
You're
I
like,
don't
take
think
my
of you as
process seriously. Yeah.
Whereas Michael Fassbender fucking switches it on and off. And like Christoph Waltz, like they're so good that you're just like, holy fuck. I don't know how these guys, like Fassbender at the time, I mean, you could go till fucking 5:30 in the morning partying in Berlin and pick up 5:45, 6, 8, and he's just like a machine. He was
Did you guys do that?
I couldn't because I was shooting Nation's Pride, the Nazi propaganda movie. Quentin had me directing the movie within the movie. So between going to the gym, I would go to the gym at 4, I would freaking like shoot all day, and then I would have to have a production meeting planning the black and white movie. So at the end of the theater, I'm basically blowing up my own movie. Quentin's like, just get me some gunfire shots so that when Zola shoots Shoshana, no one notices. I got him like, flew my brother out. We had 2 cameras. I got him like 200 shots in 3 days, throwing people off roofs and piles of bodies and swastikas. Like, I went crazy shooting. It was so fun.
I watched like that full length. It's a long. It's
5.5 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot.
Yeah, because in the movie there's just like a few scenes.
Yeah.
And
we had a fun time.
Yeah, it was fun.
I had one guy like, as an American soldier, calling Hitler, going, "Hello, Hitler, I'm sorry." Like, just stupid.
I remember that.
Stupid.
Yeah.
Quentin's like, the problem is this is like too good. He's like, your footage is really, really fucking great.
Yeah.
So that was like the most forbidden horror movie I could do as a Jew. It was like shooting a Nazi propaganda movie. And then when watching it in the theater with all the people in the extra, my mom was there, like being a Nazi extra. It was so funny. They were like, "We'll never go to Germany." And after 2 hours, they're like, "We're so thankful we came. All the anger's gone." And then my mom's dressed in like Nazi costume, like being in the movie in the crowd.
Wow.
And it was like we'd watch the movie where I'm in the thing with the bomb on my foot in the tuxedo, and then like he'd yell cut, and the drummer's like, "It's very good. It's good." Like everyone's like patting me on the shoulder. It was like weird to get complimented by the Nazi extras on my Nazi propaganda movie. It was
Did
just
you watch like Leni Riefenstahl? How do you say her name?
Yeah, Leni Riefenstahl.
Yeah.
Quentin had some movies. He had one. There, Yud Sus was a big one he had. There's crazy stuff. There was like one he had called Hitler Makes a Town for the Jews, where they had all this like food. It's so fucked up. They had like all this food out.
This is genuine propaganda.
Genuine. Oh, there were 800 movies made.
Right, and they were innovators when it came to cinema. Right?
Oh yeah. No, I mean, mostly all these guys were doing it. So Goebbels did the whole thing. So this movie, Hitler Built a Town for the Jews. Jewish director, everyone's in it. And there's all this food and it's like they're sitting at a table and there's all this food, and it's basically like, we're not killing anyone, we just built a town for them just so they're separate from us. And apparently if anyone touched the food, they were shot on the spot, and 100% of the people in the movie and involved in the movie were killed as soon as it was done.
Oh my God.
So you're just watching all these people that you know were killed. So you're just thinking about all that. Like but Yud Sus is pretty crazy. It's like, that's the classic one with like the picture of the Jew, the big nosed guy, and the rat, and him thinking about how to steal people's money and do terrible things. It's fucking crazy, those propaganda movies. It's nuts.
So what did your folks do?
My dad's a psychoanalyst.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah.
So would you visit him as a therapist? Like,
well, he
independent of the dad spot?
He had his office at our house. So it was like growing pains. Like, people were like, do crazy people go to your house? Like, at the time, psychiatry was kind of a wild, not like everybody had a therapist.
Especially
like now.
In Boston. Like, was there Boston dudes who would come in and be like...
Yeah, well, not massholes, but like, I remember my dad being like, my brothers and I were talking about the Bruins at dinner. My dad's like, they're gonna be fine next year. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, the Russians are coming. I'm like, what? He's like, no, they're getting these 3 Russian players. We're like, how do you know? He's like, I can't say. We're like, are you seeing the general manager of the Bruins, Dad? He's like, I didn't say that. You said that, not me. We're like, so my dad was super secretive about who his patients were, and a lot of times we were at school, so we didn't know. But the thing that's funny is like, everybody else, my dad, it was like every dinner was just like therapy. My dad taught me dream interpretation. So like on Inglorious Bastards, I was like the resident dream interpreter. I would sit and interpret. Quentin's like, I have a dream, and he would tell me his dream, and I would interpret it. And he's like, that's amazing. And so suddenly everyone's coming to me, telling me literally what their dreams were, asking me to explain them. And he's like, Christoph had a dream, like right before we started shooting the movie. Christoph Waltz plays Hans Landa, and he's like, I'm in an elevator. I'm like, whoa, it's so complicated. I was like, let me call the master. So we're at like the cast dinner before we start shooting.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and my dad had read the script. I'm like, hey dad, I'm with Christoph. He's going to play Landa. Can I put him on? He had a dream. You might help me. He's like, hello, Sheldon. Hi. It's a little loud. I can't, hang just one moment. And he steps outside. Christoph, no joke, comes back 3 hours later, like tears in his eyes. He's like, your father is the most incredible man. I have the whole character.
Wow.
The whole, like, that was my dad. So then everyone's like, when my dad comes, he's set psychiatrist. Like on Cabin Fever, there's this scene where Jordan Ladd had to like cry and be emotional. And she's just like, Eli, can you just get your dad? And I was like, set psychiatrist. My dad came in. And while they're like setting up the lights, Jordan lies down. And my dad's like, so tell me about your mother. And Jordan's like, roll the camera. Like, it was actually, I was like, I can't believe you're using your powers for evil. This is amazing.
And I think psychoanalysis probably lends itself well to filmmaking for you, right?
For sure.
Like, I mean, because I think about the Keanu character in Knock Knock, and like you're talking about the repression and like the way that he kind of conceives himself as a good guy in his own mind, but it's only because those ideas haven't really been challenged. And that all seems like stuff that could be born out of your dad teaching you how to think about those things.
Well, thank you. I mean, I try to make sure that all of my movies are psychologically sound. I mean, I would have my dad, I don't do this anymore, but I would have my dad read my scripts and be like, okay, are these killers in Hostel accurate? Like, are these guys in Hostel too? If this guy's this repressed by his wife, would his greatest fantasy to be to like choke someone to death that looks like her?
Right.
He pick someone that looks like her so he could act out that fantasy.
React that trauma.
And my dad would tell us stories at dinner of just the most fucked up stuff, like at Passover Seders and family dinners. We're like, tell Boy in the... I made him do it the other night. It was my mom's 80th birthday, and like all the grandkids were there. My parents are 80 and 81. In great health, wonderful. They live out here in LA. They'll be like Hollywood. I like moved them out here from Boston. And we're like, tell Boy in the Drawer. And everyone's like, what's Boy in the Drawer? My brothers and I are like, Boy in the Drawer, Boy in the Drawer. And my dad, when he was in med school at NYU, or he was a doctor, resident, he was at Bellevue, which was like the most, like the harshest, for the craziest people in New York City. He was there, and a woman had been brought in. There had been a complaint by neighbors of some smell, and they went in her apartment and found in a drawer a boy who's 18 years old who had never been out of the drawer. Oh. The mother was totally psychotic, and his body was like all calcified, and his skin was translucent, and his brain was like this weird basket case thing. And so we're like hysterical laughing because we've heard this over and over. We're obsessed with Boy in the Drawer. And so and my dad is like, 22 or something, and they're going him and they go, what do we do? And my dad goes, honestly, I'd put him back in the drawer. Like, what else? That's all he knows.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing. And the mother was like sent away to a mental. The mother was crazy. She's like, no, but I need to protect my boy. This is the only way I can do it. Like, she'd raised him and cleaned him, and he'd never been out of the drawer.
Jesus.
Boy in the Drawer. So that's where we grew up with those kinds of stuff.
Yeah,
and then
did
my
that
dad would,
trigger your
all the time
fascination with gore and stuff? Like,
everything.
when did that kind of like? How old were you when you realized that was kind of like something that you wanted to pursue?
I was like 8 when I saw Alien. I was desperate to see Alien. Because at the time, if you missed it, there was like, it wasn't home video or cable. Like if you missed it in the theater, it was gone.
What was it about Alien that really spoke to you?
Because I missed Jaws, but I'd heard about Jaws and read the novelization of Jaws, and Alien just looked like Star Wars and Jaws combined. It just looked like Star Wars, but really scary. I was obsessed with being scared and scary stories and ghost stories. And then it's interesting. I saw Pinocchio when I was 3, and that was my favorite movie. But I was really scared of when the kids get turned into donkeys, and when he gets eaten by the whale. And then someone pointed out that Hostel is a remake of Pinocchio. I was like, what? They're like, yeah, the kids go to Pleasure Island, they get turned into jackasses, and then the factories, like the whale. Like, he gave like a serious deconstruction of the structure of Pinocchio and the structure of Hostel. I was like, Jesus Christ, he's right. Like, we're just remaking the shit that traumatized us when we were 5. So I can't remember what I was talking about. We
when like gore got triggered.
when
for
gore
you.
got triggered, yeah. So I remember seeing Alien and going to see that movie, and the credits came up and it said produced by David Giler and Walter Hill. And I was like, what does a productor do? My dad's like, producer has to find all the money. I was like, I think I want to do that. He's like, well, you have to find the money for the movie. It's pretty expensive. Then I said, what does the director do? He goes, well, the director gets to spend the money, tell everybody what to do. He's like, I'm going to be a director. I remember it was like 8 or 9. I was like, I'm going to be director from watching Alien. And I was so traumatized by that movie as soon
That's
as...
such a Hollywood answer from your dad, too. Like, producer gets the money, director spends the money.
Director spends the money.
Yeah.
And then I ran out of the movie theater puking. I had this horrible thing where I would puke during movies. And then I became psychosomatic. Like, we went to see this movie called Outland where heads explode. And my parents were looking at me like, are you going to puke? I'm like, what? And I like ran down the theater projectile vomiting on people. So my parents were like, you can't see horror movies anymore because you puke. And I was like, no, I can make it. And then Raiders came out. Everyone's like, faces melt. And so my parents were like, you can't see it. But everyone knew that Raiders was like the new Star Wars. And I finally came out and I was like, I didn't puke. I did it. I was so proud of myself that I made it through. And that feeling of like, I made it. I survived it. Then home video started. I was like, I want to see pieces. I want to see like whatever's the most violent shit I could see. And I became obsessed with Dick Smith and Tom Savini and Fangoria magazine and special makeup effects. And to me, it was like a magic trick. Suddenly, it wasn't violence anymore. It wasn't real. It was, oh, how did they pull off that trick?
Are you an adrenaline junkie? Like, is that... Because for me, I love like roller coasters, getting scared and all that kind of stuff. That's sort of what draws me to horror movies. So...
Well, it feels great. I can do it in horror movies. I never could do it with sports. Like I started like in Chile when I'd go down for Christmases because it's summer there. I would take surfing lessons and finally standing up because I was like I always wanted to surf. Growing up in Boston, there was not a lot of opportunity for it. And then I always felt like I was too old to learn. And I was like, fuck it, I'm going to do it. I'm going to get like rocked. I'm going to get knocked to my ass. I was also terrified of sharks. So I started diving with them. And now I'm like a big shark advocate. Like I love sharks. And I dove with whites and tiger sharks. And like just anything that I have that like insane fear of, I just want to lean in and get over it and understand it to try and decode it. But yeah, I love the feeling of being scared in a movie. And I also realized like, okay, if you're going to take your girlfriend, if you're going to take a girl to a movie and like George Clooney and Brad Pitt, Ryan Gosling's on the screen, they're looking at you, they're looking like you're not looking so good, but Freddy Krueger's up there, Michael Myers, Jason, you're looking pretty good.
Better by comparison.
Exactly. Exactly. And then they're like, no competition. Then they're like,
and you're like, there's some bad dudes out there. Like I'm no Freddy Krueger. Like I paid for your movie ticket. I'll open your door for you. Yeah. These guys will haunt your dreams and murder your family.
Exactly. Yeah. And then they're like, well, I don't want to sleep alone. That was the trick.
Right.
All right.
My girlfriend, she gets too scared. She won't watch.
I get too scared. I used to have nightmares. I had to go see a therapist about my scary dreams.
Yeah. I love scary movies though.
I love them too.
It's the best feeling. Well, it's
so
just
much fun.
Going there and sitting through, and then you're like, I made it through.
It's a badge of honor as a kid. You're like you're like psyched you made it through. That you can take it. You can stomach it.
Cabin Fever actually stuck with me. The imagery of when the guy gets his face. Like when you see his jaw, the bone, and his teeth. Because I was like, like 12, 13 or something. And that stuck with me for like months.
That's awesome.
I watched it with my brother in New York City, and I was just like, fuck, dude, I need to watch Seinfeld.
Well, that's what you want.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah.
How did you get from graduating? You graduated from NYU to getting Cabin Fever made. Like, what jobs you have in between there and stuff?
That's a good question. I sort of did everything. When I was 18, I started working on sets, like on weekends and Saturday. If there was a movie.
Just PAing or whatever?
Anything. Getting coffee, assisting, answering phones.
Where you get on the walkie?
I was great on the walkie. It took me a while. It took me a minute to learn walkie etiquette. New York City, there was a whole thing of like, as soon as, I remember I was on Central Park West, this TV show, and this woman who was like the prop woman was like, what are you, fucking PA? And I go, yeah. She's like, fuck you, you fucking PA. I go, nice to fucking meet you. She's like, hi, I'm Barbara. They do it to see if you're
They're testing
a pussy.
Yeah.
But after Central Park West, my friend Raina was the office coordinator. She's like, I just got the job. Like, I think I'm going to work on Private Parts. And I was like, dude, the Howard Stern movies. I was pretty obsessed with Howard Stern. And then she said, do you want to, she's like, I think it's supposed to snow. There's like March. She's like, there's a freak snowstorm coming. So we want to do this thing with like Gary and these girls in the, like, out in the street with their, I don't know what's going to go on, but can you just go with them? I'm like, yeah, sure. So I go with like Gary and these girls, and they're all like, stripping. They're like 1971, Howard's first job interview, and Gary's like, can you take your top off? And he goes like, what? And he's like getting them to strip, and they're like driving, it's like on a highway median in the middle of nowhere, and like cars are driving by and they're honking, but they're going Baba Booey. Like they don't even care that there's naked girls. So then they shoot the reverse, and they were like, hey, the camera guy's like, I don't want to be in this movie. I was like, I'll do it. So it's like Gary and me, and I'm like holding the camera, and of course all of that got cut from the movie, but I got to be Gary's cameraman. And then like then they built a bedroom for Howard to sleep at Silvercup Studios, because he would do his radio show in the morning, then he would shoot the movie, and then he would wrap at like 8 at night and have to go to bed, but he didn't want to drive it an hour and a half. So he's like, what if I just sleep here? And they said, well, why don't we just who do we trust that can be here with Howard in case anything goes wrong? I'm like, well, Eli. So they called me, and so I would just sit outside his door, and I was working on the script for Cabin Fever. I'd be like, good night, Howard. And then I was like, do you want any porn? I have Tracy Lawrence movies. He's like, no, it won't help me go to sleep.
That shooting schedule, thinking about Howard working that hard, I'm literally getting anxiety right now. Because
There's a lot.
Even on the little things that we've done, I've gotten to the breaking point, like I felt mentally a couple times. Have you been stretched that thin where you were like,
oh yeah,
like have you had mental breakdowns? Well, because I've never been in your position where you have like, I'm throwing it out there, like a $30 million budget, and then you have 100 people on crew relying on you, and you have to like show up every day and be like the general. Have there been cracks in the armor before, or how do you deal with it?
No, I think that's where I thrive.
Well,
and I don't
nice.
say that as like a brag. I just like, that's actually what I do really well. Is that handling that kind of pressure and handling that kind of amount of people. It's, between the movies and the getting the movie set up, there's obviously moments of anxiety and you want the shoot to go well, but I'm so happy to do it. And being a PA, so I worked for this producer named Fred Zolo, who was doing Angels in America on Broadway. He did this movie, Quiz Show. So
Quiz Show's one of my favorites.
Really? I worked on Quiz Show.
No, you didn't.
I have a Quiz Show crew jacket.
Charlie Van Doren?
Yeah, Charlie Van Doren. Well, here's the best. Ray Fiennes. I went to the rap party.
One of the best ever.
The best part was the rap party of Quiz Show. I'll never forget. There was some girl from Entertainment Tonight and some other girl. Like, I was the PA. I was like the producer's assistant. So I was there, and I had like no money for taxis and stuff. I was still, living with like my 3 roommates on 25th Street. And some girls were like going uptown. I was like, can I share a cab with you? Because like I don't even have money. And the girl's like, yeah, oh my God, sure, come on in. And then she's like, and so like Ray Fiennes was talking to her, and he's like, he's doing his Voldemort thing.
Game?
Yeah. So I watch.
that like?
I'm watching Rafe. Well, I used to do Rafe. I used to do like, I'd be like, this is Ray Fiennes. I'd like to go see the Porky's trilogy. Can you get tickets for me? And then they'd be like, Ray Fiennes wants to go see the Porky's. Like, I'd call the other people and do like the Ray Fiennes. So I was like, I was fine tuned at that time. I can't do it now. I would call it Paul Scofield. I would just like do stupid impressions. I'd be like, where is Weekend at Bernie's 2 playing? I need to see it. And they're like, Paul Scofield called. He wants a copy of Weekend at Bernie's 2 for a scene for tomorrow. Like shit like that.
Hilarious.
So I remember like Ray Fiennes was like talking to this girl, and she's like, okay, good night. She goes, Eli, are you ready? And she fucking puts her arm around me and gets in the car. And he just looked at me and his jaw just hit the ground. And then the next day I was like working for this producer, and I was listening in the phone call with the producer. It's like, hey, how late was the party? He's like, Eli left the party and took all the girls with him. And I was like, that was it. I mean, I literally got out of the cab 15 blocks
That's a
later.
big moment where you're like, okay, I can make it happen in Hollywood.
I felt great. Well, I met David Lynch there, and
cool.
which was awesome. And he's like, here's the deal, Nikola Tesla. He was going to do a whole project on Nikola Tesla.
Yeah.
So I was still at NYU. I was like a junior at NYU and running his office full time and working. I mean, I just made it work. I was like, I would go to school. I would run his office. I had different friends interning because Fred didn't want to pay anybody. And I learned so much working for him. I met David Lynch, and I remember watching Redford direct Scorsese on Quiz Show, just like sitting there on set. It was so
Scorsese's
fun.
so good at that in that movie because he
great.
owns like Lipdol or something.
Geritol.
Geritol, the
Geritol.
big advertiser for the show. Yeah,
the best. So you're sitting there in New York City, and I got to go to opening night of Angels in America, and like I just had this crazy New York City.
Was Al Pacino in that?
Pacino was not in that. He was in the movie
Right.
version. But it's great. And I subsequently got to meet Pacino, and you got to meet all my heroes like Pacino and everyone. It's really, my friends. It's incredible to have like grown up obsessed with these movies, and then getting to meet them and know them, and then also sort of my movie nerddom completely paying off. Like everyone just made fun of you, like you're wasting your time. You're just watching movies. Why are you spending all this time watching movies? And then like you meet them, you meet Pacino, and you can talk about Scarecrow and Panic in Needle Park and like all these different movies that people generally don't. I mean, obviously Scarface, but a lot of movies, Cruising, stuff that people generally don't bring up. That's
I know
like,
Cruising, yeah.
Yeah, I love Cruising. So there's a lot of. So I'm working, and I basically wrote Cabin Fever with my roommate Randy, and we're 22, and I made a student film called Restaurant Dogs, which was my Tarantino Reservoir Dogs parody. It was Ronald McDonald and his gang on a killing spree, and you had to shoot it on film on like 16 millimeter, and it was kind of it was like Monty Python. It was like a Terry Gilliam, like half animated, because I was like, oh, I want an animated Vietnam flashback with like Grimace and Hamburger like fucking prostitutes, like in Born on 4th of July and playing Russian roulette, and it was just nuts. Like they did that. Some teachers didn't want to graduate me after saying it, but I showed it to an agent who's like, this is insane, but it's funny, and if you write a feature script, maybe I can help you get it made. So we wrote Cabin Fever. I'll never forget it. It was like we wrote it in like 3 weeks or 4 weeks, and we tried to get it made. We spent 6 years just trying to get money and just setting up LLCs and failing, and finally,
how many pitches were involved in that?
I mean, count 6 years, every single person you could ever meet, and you'd have like a deck and a script and a budget and a shooting plan, and we're gonna do it for half. And at the time, we're like, well, we know Jay Moore, let's ask Jay, and what if Steve Zahn plays this character, and let's get Mary McCormick and Zach Orth, like all the New York actors that we knew at the time could be in it. But then there's like, okay, they're not available, they're too big, they've aged out. And then I finally moved to LA. I was like, everyone's like, I realized that all the money was here in LA. And a friend of mine, Evan Ostrowski from film school, was like, dude, we did these animated shorts. I got money to do this thing called Chow to Heads. It was this thing for wrestling, and this thing, The Rotten Fruit, for this website. And I basically finally got the money. We started shooting it with like $50,000. We're like, let's just go, let's just start.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Did you ever do you have any moments where you're just like, I don't think I can get this made? Like, did you always just kind of know, like, eventually I will get this made? I think just need to get to the right person.
Yeah, I just think you need to have such conviction that you're insane about it. Like, I remember being 25, and we called our apartment in New York City Mauschwitz, because there was like a mouse infestation, and then we had to like bomb it with poison. So it was like poison and dead rats. So we're like, here we are in Mauschwitz, like picking up every day. We'd like pick up like 30 dead rats. They were in the walls. It was a nightmare. And I remember like, wow, my friends have jobs. They're like starting to be doctors now and lawyers, and they have health insurance. And I'm like picking up dead mice. My brother's like, yeah, but like you're not gonna be doing that forever. You're doing that because you don't want to take a full-time job. You don't want to take a job at a bank. You don't want to go to law school. You're like trying to be a movie director. But I realized I was at a disadvantage being in New York. And once I moved to LA, I was like, oh, my roommate was Neil Brennan, who's then to co-create Chappelle Show. Like, I moved in with Neil, and then because Chappelle moved out.
What was he like to live with?
Neil was a tough roommate.
Yeah,
I could see
that. Yeah.
And then his brother Danny, and I knew. And
his brother Kevin is supposed to be like
Kevin's hilarious.
Tougher too.
Well,
right?
Danny, everyone's like, oh, Danny's easy. So Danny moved in after Neil moved out. But I knew Neil. I knew Neil since he was 20. Like, we were friends in New York. I just had never lived with him. But then he took my apartment. We did like an apartment switch where Neil like moved back to New York. I took Neil's. Basically, it was me and Neil's brother. And then I finally got money to live on my own. And once you find that first investor, I was like, Cabin Fever, we had people like almost lost their houses. My dad put his retirement money into it. We got shut down by the union. We never had the money. I would literally shoot and then call people between setups for money. I was begging for money while I was shooting. And we all got stress-related health problems from the film. And then we took it to the Toronto Film Festival. And I remember watching it in the lab, getting it on the plane, flying to Toronto. And because thankfully Harry Knowles on Ain't It Cool News had written, I had a phone call with him, and he's like, I think this movie's going to be amazing. I have a feeling about it. Because we were programmed dead last. Out of 345 movies, we were like 346. And he's like, don't go home, stay for Cabin Fever. And I remember getting off the plane, seeing a friend from film school who's like working at Miramax, and he's like, dude, everyone who's seen your movie said it's amazing. And then like literally, I was the only one who had seen it at the lab by myself, checking the print. And then we sold it, and everyone made their money back, and then that was it.
Yeah, it was a hit, right? It made like 80 million.
It did great. Well, in the theaters, it cost $1.5 million. The theaters made 30, but then on
30,
DVD,
right.
Everyone's buying DVDs. It made another 70 million. So
That's
it was like
right.
100 million.
Yeah.
It was crazy. It was one of the highest. It was the top grossing film for Lionsgate that year. And then they're like, let's do Saw. And then Hostel. It just became huge.
Did you get like whiplash from the change in your kind of life from that?
Yeah, it was crazy. It's all of a sudden you're like, because it happened to me at 32, 33, like all of a sudden everything changes where you finally are like in the club. Like people are returning your calls, like you're like, oh, actually a director. I remember going bowling with my friends and there was a TV on. Everyone's like, look. And it was MTV and it was a commercial for Cabin Fever, and everyone stopped and looked at me. And that was the moment it changed. They were like, you're a real director. Like you really did it. Like you have a commercial on MTV. I was like, I told you, this isn't like some indie. Everyone thought I was doing Blair Witch. I was like, yeah, I went out in the woods. I made an indie movie. It's going to be coming out. But when there were the commercials on MTV, people were like, oh, you're a fucking mate. Like, and then it opened, and Peter Jackson saw it and gave me quotes, and Quentin saw it and became friends with him. And then I was offered a lot of stuff, and I was like, fuck it, I think I should just do I don't know what to do. I remember it was Dukes of Hazzard I turned down, and I was offered like $300,000 to do it, which is more money than I'd ever seen in my entire life. And it was like wiped me out of debt. It would have been everything. And I said no, because I just didn't click with the script. And I went over to Quentin's house and I was like, I think I just fucked myself, because this is a Warner Brothers movie. They've offered me the directing job. I could get out of debt. And he's like, fuck that. He's like, don't do it. He's like, don't think about opening weekend. Think about that weekend. Think about, he's like, what other ideas do you have? What other ideas do you have? And I was like, well, I have this one idea, but I think it's too sick for like mainstream movies. And I told him the idea for Hostel. And he's like, dude, that's the best idea I've heard in 10 years for a horror movie. You have to make that movie. You have to. He's like, I would even come on and present that movie. I'm like, really? He's like, yeah. I was like, well, maybe it's just too much for people. He's like, don't think about opening weekend. Think about the weekend 15 years from now if kids are watching it to sleep over. That's the weekend you want to make a movie for. And I did it, and it wound up being like the most financially successful of all my films. It was crazy.
Who of your heroes have you been able to create a close relationship with?
For sure, Quentin.
Yeah.
I mean, Quentin was like, I was making Restaurant Dogs in film school, and then, your best man at his wedding. It's like
That's
he's
awesome.
And he's my Passover Seder. He's like my brother.
When did he get
him.
married?
He got married in November. Last November.
Whoa.
So yeah.
I listened to your podcast, the History of Horror Uncut with Quentin.
So fun.
His movie knowledge isn't like, he just keeps going. You're like, this is insane.
You're swimming in the deep end. with
Yeah.
Quentin. I could watch
It's
movies
insane.
every day. I could watch 5
Yeah.
movies a day for my entire life. His ability, not just to watch movies, but to retain the information. He
Like
really
the
is
cultural impact and stuff.
everything. What it was,
It's
who made
unreal.
it, what the reviews said about it.
Yeah.
It's like he's a mad genius and has entirely channeled it into movies.
Yeah.
And there are very few people, like the people that I met that had an intellect that's like daunting, that you're like, oh my God, this is like one of the smartest people I've ever met, but also truly one of the funniest. It's Quentin and David Lynch. And those two guys were like incredible mentors for me. I mean, but you sit there and you're just like, Jesus Christ, I will never know as much about movies as this guy.
Do you because I've noticed in myself too that I'm like hyper competitive, like sometimes to my detriment, I think. Do you have that too? Like, are you measuring yourself against other directors, and are you trying to like beat them like critically or commercially or?
That's something you do at the beginning of your career,
Right.
hardcore, and you always do that. And it's something that I've sort of worked to get over. And I think that kind of with age and experience, you learn to become competitive with yourself. And once you're focusing on someone else and what their career is, like life happens. And it's funny because I was like, Cabin Fever, it all worked out. And then I was like, here's an idea for Hostel. And it's like, it was so sick, they like had to create a new term to describe it. And they were like, torture porn and this. It was just like, I was like, this is easy. I can just fucking shock people. But then you realize life has other plans for you. And you're just like, okay, so there's people that are kind of in your class that you're like, you're friends with, or like Rich Kelly or Edgar Wright, like the people that we all broke around the same time.
You'll always kind of like.
And you always have the competitive thing, but it's not in a bad way. Or,
You're just like, that's how you keep track of each other.
you
right?
keep track. You're
of how
like,
you
but they
change.
see a movie, you're like, oh fuck, he did a movie. He went for it. He did it. Okay, I'm gonna push myself. Like, if you can use it as fuel in a really healthy way, where you're not like, fuck, they did it, or you never.
You're not mad at them.
You're not mad at them. You're never rooting for them. They're your colleagues, not your competitors. You're not. Their success.
They make
not,
you better.
They make you better. Their success is not a measure of your failure. And I always talk about with like the Saw guys how we were like pushing each other with Hostel and Saw of like who could be like the most shocking and who could be the most critical. And even if their box office was bigger, I'd be like, yeah, but I did the scene that upset more people. I got banned in more countries. Like that. Like, and they'd be like, yeah,
There's
we got this.
different
I'm
metrics.
like, I got on
Yeah.
Howard Stern. They're like, oh, no,
Right,
like,
yeah.
okay, but
Right.
the thing that I had was, I sort of, because I was there first, and I kind of got out there, I was like the director. I used to love going on talk shows. I was like doing The Tonight Show. I did Jimmy Kimmel. This was like kind of before Howard Stern. This was all before Inglorious Bastards. So then after that, so it was just like, you just start winning into, and then you're like, what am I doing? Like, I'm losing track of what's important. Like, if you focus on, because it literally means nothing. And by the way, nobody else is keeping track except you.
Right.
And I'm sure someone's keeping track of me in a way that I don't even understand. But you can only be competitive with yourself.
Yeah.
If you think, am I pushing myself my best? Because you can't control what's going to happen. So all you can do, the only thing you control is your frame of mind and the work you do. And that's why I went off social media for like, I haven't been on in like 2 months. Like, I just realized that it starts to, take me to that place of like, why the fuck aren't I doing that? That's what they're doing. I should be doing that shit. Like, of like the FOMO, and you're like, no.
Compare and
I'm like
despair.
right where I should be. I'm like tuning everything out so I can get into my creativity. Like, what's in my brain? What's in my brain that I'm not accessing because I'm filling it with worrying about what other people are doing?
Yeah, there really is nothing, because I get those competitive feelings too, and there's really nothing better than when you feel like, you're falling behind a little bit, so then you use that to push yourself, and then you get some kind of victory. it's just like when you utilize it in the correct way.
Yeah.
It's such a satisfying feeling, but it's so, especially because we're early in our careers, and it's so easy to fall into those.
Oh, you make yourself crazy because there's
and
no
we're on
rules.
social media. That's like where we exist
We're
right
getting
now.
a lot of feedback.
I feel for you
Yeah.
guys.
Oh, the feedback is.
It's hard. No, you can't.
Yeah.
You got.
They're nice though.
No, I
Yeah,
got.
it's
Look,
great.
I had
It's
message
great.
boards.
Yeah.
I was like the most hated director. I mean, it happened.
Yeah.
The fucking Razzie Awards, all that shit. You just gotta go. No, I'm doing my thing.
Yeah.
Was it-
Sometimes to be misunderstood. That's part of the deal.
Was it hard for you when you broke through to like not be able to like, because I'm sure you had like a group of friends that you broke through with, to not be able to like, you know, get
It
that.
all changes because
Yeah.
your peer group shifts. And I talked about this with some other directors, Patty Jenkins, other people. Like if there's your friends, and I turned down $350,000 or whatever for Dukes of Hazzard, you can't have that conversation with your friend who's working at Ralph's, because they're gonna be like, you fucking asshole.
It's not a problem. They're like, you don't
Like-
have a real problem. Why are you talking about
But then
it?
you talk to Quentin, he's like, that's really smart. Play the long game, because if you don't think you can make that movie great, and you know, like if you're not like excited to make that movie, then you got like, it's gonna fuck you in your career. You don't want to make a bad movie. That's your first studio movie, and you're not psyched about it, and you can't kill it. Like, don't do it. Don't worry about the money. Do what you love. Follow your heart. Like, follow something you believe in, and the money will follow. And the other thing is that there's no rules. There's no fairness. There's nothing. Nothing is equitable. Like, it's not like, oh, you're a good person and you did right and you were like virtuous and you got like. There's some people that are just fucking assholes that you think have no talent, whatever, and they're like having crazy success. And you just go, you know what? Good for them. That is their path. Maybe these other people saw something I didn't, or I can't control whether or not they're a good person. Or it's like nothing is just. And once you kind of let go of that and be water, and you can just move around things, everything is easier.
What do you do to keep your head on straight?
That's why I don't go on social media. I think you will fucking spiral. If I go on Instagram and I just start looking at stuff, I mean, I'll post stuff to promote, but like reading comments, it's so, to me, it's like
tough.
poison. I like to think of my creativity as like a well that is pure with fresh rainwater. And if you look at other people are doing in other people's lives, I have it, this is me personally. Now, this is my weakness. Other people have alcohol, drugs, but it's like sewage being dumped into it. And I would like had this pure thought where I was in this headspace of like writing a scene. I'm never going to create anything. Like, what am I doing here if I'm not here to create something? I'm in an opportunity where I can write movies, produce movies, direct. I can act in movies. I can host TV shows. I'm like, I can do anything I want. So now it's about me choosing what to do with my time. So really, you have to just find ways to focus on yourself. And that's why I go to the gym and I work out. And when you're feeling, you know, like a part of it, and that's growing up too. It's like, it's hard when you're young and you're like, see it. And then like, you were so close. I mean, I've been so close on fucking movies. Like, you wouldn't believe. And I've turned down movies that you're like, oh, are you fucking kidding me? Why did you turn that down, you idiot? Like, after Hostel, I could have done anything. And I was like, no, I'm going to do Hostel too. Because I don't want to fucking take orders from anybody. I wanted to, like, and then I look back, that was what I needed to do at the time. Then I'm like, fuck it, I'm going to go to Chile for 4 years and just make movies there and reinvent myself and clear my head. And that's why I like shooting. You asked why I like shooting overseas and why I like shooting in Prague and South America. It's like, no one fucking bothers you, man. You're just like, there's nothing.
And you're in a new bubble, and it's not
Movie bubble.
Like, ours is not comparable, but
Yeah, we had that in Hawaii kind of.
Yeah.
We shot an episode of Hawaii 5-0
yeah,
So
a couple
cool.
weeks ago.
and it was
like you were talking about being on location. It's just like
we were both
it was-
ready to move.
It was so refreshing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you get
I was like-
seduced because movie time happens. And
Right,
suddenly
yeah.
you're like 2 weeks or like 2 years, and friendships get really intensified,
Yeah.
and relationships are really intensified, but all that. But to me, I was a big summer camp kid. I don't know if you guys went to summer camp because you got to grow up
I
basically in
dabbled.
summer camp.
a little bit. I did
but on
surf
the
camp
east,
down the street.
right? But on in the East Coast, we go to summer camp.
Yeah.
And the closest replication to summer camp is making a movie.
Yeah.
Because you're in it for 8 weeks. It's a bunch of people. You're all kind of living together. You're eating meals. You have to do stuff every day. There's a schedule, but it's all fun stuff that you all kind of want to do. And it's not like school. And then at the end, everyone's like, we're all going to be best friends and stay in touch forever every day. And then you all lose touch except for maybe one person.
Right.
And then you reunite on something else the next year, and it just pick up exactly where you left off.
Yeah.
Is it? This is a kind of weird question, but is it hard to direct Bruce Willis? For some reason, it seems to me like it'd be tough.
Here's the thing. Every actor has their thing, and it's as tough as you make it. You know, like certain people like Bruce, there's just a way to approach him, and there's a way to do it. And I never had a problem with him because I asked what happened. When did people run afoul of Bruce? And it's generally if he's an actor that likes it if I'm going to direct him, you stop everything, you walk up to him, and it's the two of you having a conversation. If he feels like you're yelling at him across the room, then it's like, don't fucking embarrass me in front of the crew by telling me I'm doing something wrong. It's like he's had enough bad experiences and he's at a point in his career. He likes to be very specific direction, and he doesn't like it when he doesn't want you to waste his time. Mm-hmm. So you have to really have it figured out, know what you need him for, use him for that, and talk to him up close one-on-one. Then there's not a problem.
Yeah, like competency is like the great equalizer. Like if any of these, and I don't mean to put them in this group without knowing anything about it, but like temperamental actors, if they have faith in you, that can regulate them.
People told me, they were like, well, fucking Russell Crowe's difficult. And I was in China with him, and Man with the Iron Fist, and I was like, oh, he's going to be, he's, you know. And then RZA was like, Crowe's the best. And that he was. I fucking sat down with Russell, and I loved him right off the bat. And, you know, he'll want to talk, and you'll want to listen, and he has very strong opinions on the characters, because I'm writing it, but he's also really smart, and he's the one who has to do it. And sometimes I can be like, okay, what is the note behind the note? What is he worried about? What is actually, okay, they don't want to be, he's like, why would I fucking break a table with a knife? That's stupid. I've never done it. Like, and then I'm like, okay, yeah, but it's a magic knife and it shoots bullets and it's kind of a fantasy movie. And he's like, this is going to be fucking ridiculous. Let me try. And then he'll do it and I'll show him the playback. I'm like, see, he's like, I got it. All right, that's fucking cool. Let me do it again. And then he's like, okay, that's fucking great. You know, like, as long as he trusts that you know what you're doing,
right,
and that you don't back down. Like, a lot of these guys will bark to see if you're just gonna like will to be like, ah. But if you're like, you never meet, if someone's, because actors, I know what it's like having been on that scene with the bat, and I know what they're like they're exhausted, they're afraid, they're under a lot of pressure, they want to look good, maybe they don't feel like they're looking as good as in their younger years. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on, so you just have to be like, what do I need you to do? And like, I got you, man. Like, I will make you look great. Like, what's your concern? We're going to figure it out. No problem. You wouldn't do that because you think that's fucking stupid. You think that's going to look dumb. Okay, here's where I need you to get to. How should we do it? Like, don't meet their level of anger. Just listen to them.
When did you learn that? Was that pretty early on that you knew how to sort of relate to actors, or is that sort of...
I think after Hostel 2, I was like a little bit burned. And then acting in Inglorious Bastards and watching Pitt, watching Christoph, like watching how Quentin directed actors, watching him, like, when actors were difficult, how he kind of handled it, and sort of sympathizing with him for that, and then going back, okay, it's the rehearsal time. But it's really like kind of understanding. It's just like being around them. And once I went through the process, it's also like after that fire scene, people are like, he's not a fucking pussy. Like, he really did it. Like, you acted on screen with Pitt and Christoph for Quentin. Like, that was no bullshit. It was a real performance. And so we get that you understand what we're talking about. This isn't a director that's afraid to get his hands dirty. Quentin shoots, he stands next to camera. He doesn't have a chair. He doesn't have a monitor. He's his philosophy that why directors start to suck is they get lazy in the chair. They get comfortable. So he's always like up and he's standing there. He's like, if I feel like, I have to get up to like, that's when the movie starts to be bad, because then the DP's directing the movie. You know, the director has to be there on set next to the camera looking at the actor. So, but then I finally got the opportunity to work with like Jack Black and Cate Blanchett, which is just like an absolute, you know, Cate Blanchett is fucking cool and funny and great. And you can be like, wow, that was terrible. I didn't think Cate Blanchett was terrible. She was like, fuck you, just tell me what to do. I'm like, I'd be like, wow, were you blinking? You know, like, she's never terrible, but you could joke like that.
But she could miss.
And Jack would be, I'd be like, Jack, that was a attempt, like, just dial it back. I was like, what's that? I was like, the eyebrow, doing the eyebrow, like, stop the brow. He's like, okay, thank you. Like, they want to hear that.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, like Kate was doing, I was like, Kate, she's like, what? I'm like, why are you blinking? Like, she's like, she's like, I didn't even, she's like, fuck, she's like, I didn't even notice I was doing that. Like, they have their sort of fallback things that they do that's kind of second nature. But also when they trust you, and also you can get it. What I learned from Quentin was he would call it the little sister take. He's like, okay, we got the big sister, and it could be whoever the two sisters of the moment are, where there's the pretty older one and the not so pretty younger one. He's like, this one's like a little sister. It's like, we got like the big sister take. That's the good one. Let's go for a little sister. Let's just see what happens. Like, may not be as pretty as the other take, but you'd still date her. It's still fun. And sometimes I watch, like giving an actor, knowing we got it, it's great. Sometimes you're rushing, move on. You know what? We have time. Do you guys just want to do one more? Just see what happens? Sure. One more before it. The other thing Quentin did was really smart, was when we were doing like the scene where we had to be like, Margareti. he's like, actors are always better off camera. Watch what they do. So he's like, if the camera's on you and your guys are acting opposite me, you're gonna be so loose and funny doing stupid shit.
I think that's the hardest part about acting is being good when it's your close up.
When it's your close up, but then you can do it. But then Quentin he'll put the camera on you guys, and then I've already shot my shot, and then I'll come up with something so funny off camera. He'll be like, wait, and he'll fucking turn around and he'll relight the entire sequence.
That's awesome.
And that happened when we were shooting the Margarita scene. We didn't do Christoph's coverage where it was like his side. So we did the lights. So we got to come in on a Saturday for off camera for Christoph. And we're like, well, let's get in our costumes. And everyone's like, why are you getting in? I'm like, because it's fucking Christoph. I'm going to be like acting in like my normal street clothes. Like, let me put on the tuxedo so it feels more authentic. Then if there's behind the scenes, maybe he wants to do a photo. And we just started fucking around. I just started doing the hand gesture, and Quentin was laughing so hard. He's like, turn the camera around. He's like, let's do your hand gesture. And he's like, okay, Eli, I don't want to step on your gesture. He goes, but what if Omar copies Donnie and then he does it too? I'm like, that's perfect. No, that's the right thing, because it's the blind leading the blind. And it was just like the Margarita. And it was just one of those stupid things that was based on a kid I went to high school with who went to Italy for 2 weeks and came back and started doing this because he was the espresso in Rome. Like, he started doing this fucking hand gesture.
Yeah.
And we're like, what the fuck happened to you? You're like some Greek heavy metal fan, and now you're like this, like, you want the espresso.
I don't think people understand too that it takes a certain kind of person to be generous to the other person when the camera's not on them.
Yes.
Because some actors, it seems like, and I have very limited experience, will kind of not give the person who's
very
on
hard.
camera everything that they would give when they're on camera, and it can kind of rob from their performance.
Or I've been in the situation where actors will flub the line on purpose off camera to fuck up the person on camera.
Right.
So then they have to improvise and change their dialogue to make up for, like, by a word or
just
two.
as like just a competition thing, right?
Yeah,
'cause
just
they
to
want
make them
more.
look bad. So that's why they
Yeah.
say there's no small parts, only small actors. Because an actor can come in for one scene, and Christopher Walken in Pulp Fiction, and kill it. You know, all the scenes in, you know, Charles Manson, all the scenes in Once Upon a Time in America, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So it's great when you have an actor, and obviously like screaming is hard and doing stuff, but like when they're doing the reactions to the baseball bat, you know, I was just like beating it, and then like I just like started fucking the corpse and then jumping on it and like punching it in the face, and they were laughing so hard. They were just like, it was genuine, you know. I didn't tell them I was going to do it, but like they were like, thank you, you know. That's what it is. Like, I understand when you have a scene. And the other thing that Quentin would do that was so cool is he's like, when we go in to interrogate Diane Kruger, he's like, he'd come back, he's like, now Donnie and Aldo, you don't know who this bitch is. Everything just went wrong in the tavern. Like, he's like, you don't know who she is. Is she a spy? She claims but she might be the one that fucking got your buddies just killed. Like, all your friends, and like, so you guys talk. So me and Brad would do the scene before the scene off stage, just the two of us. And then we'd fucking, like, they would roll the camera, and then we'd fucking go in and do the scene. It was so fun. I'm like, I'm doing this war scene with Brad Pitt. It's fucking awesome. It was the best.
That's awesome. Fuck a duck. That was your line, right?
Yes, it was.
What was Brad like?
It's the best.
He seems like I've been watching like interviews for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. He seems like the coolest dude.
Yeah, you want to talk about the legend?
Yeah.
It's not. I mean, it's a spoiler alert. There's no one better than that dude.
Yeah.
Because I remember he was so. Look, his life was big. It was at the height of him and Angelina and leaving Jennifer and just having twins, and you would never know that any of that is going on when he shows up on set. He's just a chill dude. He's nice to every single crew member. He loves being there. He was like great with everybody. There was no like movie star bullshit. There's nothing. I was like, and I kept thinking like, when is this like? When's like the real Brad? When's the monster gonna get? Nothing. Never.
Yeah.
He's just the coolest dude. I fucking love him. And then like, even when I saw him on set in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, it's like exactly picks up like 10 years later, just funny, cool, chill.
Yeah.
You know, I really like, and I think he's such a great actor.
Yeah.
And he was great at giving advice. Like, once everyone was like, so what was Floyd like? He just started talking about like we kind of waited and tiptoed around asking him questions about shit. But then he would just talk about True Romance and talk about Floyd and talk about all his characters and how much we loved it. And he loves movies. And he told me, he was like, yeah, man, I've watched Green Inferno like 4 times. I was like, that's so awesome.
He has great taste. His production company just like
it's
bangs
amazing.
out really
Oscar
quality
movies.
stuff. Yeah.
It's funny he's making Oscar movies, then it'll be like, I think he loves Jackass and He loved Hostel.
Right.
He watched all my movies. He was just like, you're a sick man, Mr. Roth. You're a very sick man. So I just like, I see him and I just start fucking laughing. He's one of those dudes.
Who's a newish? Or sorry, keep going.
No, is it?
Who's like a newish director that excites you?
There are these guys, Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead, who did this movie called The Endless that was done for like $200,000 that I thought was like really, really cool. I love when people do movies for like next to nothing. And, you know, obviously when Jordan Peele came out with Get Out and Ari Aster with Hereditary, I thought it was like great. These guys are coming out with really cool, interesting movies. But Benson and Moorhead, they did a new film that I haven't seen with Anthony Mackie, but they did a movie called Spring. And I was just like, man, these guys are making movies for nothing, and they're acting in them, and they're taking very simple premise. I like that they take kind of one location and turn it into something really cool and sci-fi. So I love those dudes.
Cool.
Should we get into the questions?
Yeah.
Whatever you want. Yeah.
Oh, and Shark After Dark. What was it like working on that?
I loved it. Shark
Yeah.
After Dark was fun because that's where I started learning about the shark slaughter, which is unfortunate.
Right,
That's
yeah.
something that I'm kind of very involved in. Going to be coming out with a project soon about it, about like how 100 million sharks a year are taken out of the water, and they're like the doctors of the ocean and keep the water safe and the ocean healthy for everyone. And it was crazy. It was like every single person I interviewed, they were so cool, and they were like, yeah, but you know, the sharks are like going to be gone soon. I was like, what? Like, yeah, 100 million a year. That's the conservative estimate.
That's
I found
crazy.
it's as high as 273 million. So I loved it. And I got to go diving. I got to go diving with tiger sharks, which was one of the greatest thrills of my life.
Yeah.
And I went diving in Guadalupe Island last year with Michael Muller and Laird Hamilton. Was on
Wow.
that trip. So it was like with me and Laird and Great Whites. It was like Laird Hamilton, Great Whites, Laird,
It's like,
Great Whites.
I got this.
Yeah. And then I did that crazy pool workout at his house, which was absolutely
Yeah.
terrifying. Where you're like walking underwater with weights with Gabby Reese being like, Eli, go. And you're like,
He's
I'm
always
gonna
working.
die.
He's like, it seems like Laird is always working out.
beast, dude.
Yeah, like from the moment he wakes up, he's
Yep.
optimizing.
And I've seen it.
Yeah.
I've seen it like from that Murray. It's like incredible. He's a very unique human specimen.
Yeah.
And a nice dude.
Does he get hang?
Yeah. I mean, it's like intense. Like they're so like Laird and Gabby, because his daughter was on the boat, Maurice, and she's really into horror movies and like serial killers. So then I started like having dinner and like hanging out with them, and like I was like, oh, I'll be with the Hamiltons all day. And then their daughter Brody does equestrian, and then we got really into Catan. So we're like, oh, I gotta go to Laird Hamilton's play Catan with his kids. Like, just the whole family was so nice, and they do these kind of open pool trains that they're very generous to invite me to, and they're super. Cool. But Gabby, they're like superhuman. They're really, really nice.
Who's your favorite serial killer?
Probably H.H. Holmes,
What's
the original. His deal was he was the Beast of Chicago in 1896. He had a death hotel. He was totally crazy. He had 5 identities, and he would have people build this hotel that, like, if you turn on the shower, like, flames would shoot out. And you, like, there was stairways that, like, led to nowhere, and then you would, like, push a button, and the floor would drop out, and you'd go fall down into a vat of acid. And in the basement, he was, like, he was stretching people to build a race of giants. So, yeah, DiCaprio has the rights to a book. There's a great book called Devil in the White City. Oh, it's amazing.
That's the Larson book, right? Is that the guy's name?
I think so.
Eric, I've seen it. Yeah.
Devil in the White City. It's about H.H. And when they caught him, he's like, I am the devil. Like, they finally, like, one woman escaped. And it's during the World's Fair where it was so transient. People would check. He had a pharmacy in the ground level. But he would, like, he would have people build and just give them plans and build these, like, torture rooms. And then they would go, can we get paid? And he would just kill them.
Man,
It's a different time.
Do you ever get scared on set?
I get scared. My nightmares are like, oh, I had a dream. I show up on set and there's no camera.
Right.
That's actually happened to me before every shoot. It's
Really?
like I'll show up and there's no camera there. It's like, what are we shooting? I'm like, where's the camera? I'm like, I don't know. That happens to me a lot. But no, I mean, I get scared that we're not going to make the day or that's going to happen, but no.
No.
All right. So we answer some questions from
Sure.
our listeners. Dear Legends of Stoke, I unfortunately write in today with some historically low Stoke. I recently moved into college for my freshman year. Like any wide-eyed freshman, I came in absolutely psyched to go out on the weekends and rage with the squad. On my first Friday on campus, my fellow Stokers and I traveled to the infamous liquor store on campus that is known for letting subpar fake IDs slide. The transaction went smoothly, and we were on our way back to the dorms when we were stopped by a freaking undercover cop. The officer immediately told us to drop our backpacks on the sidewalk and line up in a row. The officer claimed that she had tracked us from the liquor store and was now approaching us due to the fact that we displayed signs of being underage. In other words, she saw one of us put a bottle into a backpack. The ordeal ended with the whole squad getting fake ID and underage alcohol possession charges. Absolute vibe killer. Just to top things off, the officers made us pour out the bottles on the sidewalk as random bystanders snagged videos of us. The crew is now under the magnifying glass on the campus police and is in serious danger if ever caught again. Any tips on how to still enjoy my freshman year despite this horrible setback on the first weekend? Advice or any help would be greatly appreciated. Thank you for your time due to the fact that this was a lengthy write-in. Sincerely, a Stoke-deprived Stoker.
I can offer advice.
Please.
Dude.
Go to Prague.
Oh, good call.
Go to Prague, go to Europe, where they like drinking age is 16, and it's like not even a question.
Yeah.
Where it's like, do we want absinthe like with wormwood or not? Like, or go to South America, like literally get out, take a trip to another city in Europe, and then we're like, okay, we're doing a semester here, because then we don't have to worry about any of this.
Yeah, I did that in high school.
Where?
I went to Spain, and because I was starting to party, and like my school, it was a zero chance policy, so I would have been
Jesus.
out. So my buddies and I, we went to Spain,
So good.
and I lived above a pub, Flaherty's. So I was just crushing Heinekens. Wasn't worried about all that. So it's great advice if you want to. And I sort of, and also I was in high school, so it helped me sort of mature party wise before college. So when I got to college, you know, people were just like puking everywhere, doing crazy shit, and I'm like, I got this.
Great advice.
I-
I was an exchange student in France. My
you were?
second half
Yeah.
of my senior year. It was like life changing. It was
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
And the drinking and the wine, it was nothing. I learned a lot. They
It's
taught me a
nice.
thing or two. Them, they're French girls.
It's such a different culture around drinking, the way they compared to Americans, you know.
They
it's-
teach kids how to drink. They start
Right,
kids
yeah.
drinking at the dinner table with wine when they're 9 or 10
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
years old. So the kids get sick, learn how not to do it, and then learn not to be idiots by they're 14. Like, so by the time they're 16, they can drink. It's like they've been educated by their parents on how to drink. It's crazy.
Yeah, I've never bypassed like the drinking is a race to get fucked up mentality that like I kind of adopted as like a 16-year-old. So I still like when I see booze, I'm like, I don't think am I getting a buzz. I'm like, am I getting fucked up tonight? No, probably not. And then, but if I do drink, I'm typically
I get it.
partying.
I was
Yeah.
like that with weed. I used to think with weed, the point was to get as high as you could, as fast as you could. I didn't smoke
Right.
till I was 21, and I can't
Smart.
really handle it. Yeah.
I think the longer you wait, the better too.
Yeah. I tried acid. I tried acid when I was like doing Knock Knock. I was like in my 40s. I was like, I'm going to try acid. This would be great. And of course, like I go to Lollapalooza and I'm like really high on acid. And Lorenz is there and she's like, it's like Fear and Loathing. Like she's like helping me like walk to the empanada stand. It was like, I felt like Benicio del Toro at Circus. And then I had been 2 days later. They're like, Eli, you know, you have your drug test. I was like, my what? They're like, yeah, we have to insure you. You're the director, so you're like the investor wants you insured. So I went, and me and Keanu's like doesn't drink or do drugs or anything now. He's like, what? I'm like, I can't believe I'm going to get drug tested with Keanu Reeves. And so I was really excited. We go and we get like, because that's like standard for insurance. You need to do a drug test.
Yeah.
So we do the drug test and we both pass. And I was like, oh, it's amazing
Yeah.
that like I passed, you know, with the acid. And then I was editing and I was talking to the producer. I'm like, God, you remember like the one time in my life I try acid? What are the chances that I then get a drug test 3 days later and it could jeopardize the entire production? It's amazing I passed. He goes, what are you talking about? We paid off the doctor.
Oh, really? I had heard that acid you need to do like a spinal tap to find it in the drug test. Did you heard that?
Well, I know that it stays in your spine,
Right.
in like the fluid or something. If
It's
you, like-
probably still there.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy
It
acid?
was the best. I saw the Pixies in Soundgarden. I was like, Caribou! I was so happy. I was like, I just want to create art. Like, if you ever meet Lorenzo, just be like, what? Just ask her to do her impression of me on acid at Lollapalooza watching Pixies in Soundgarden, like tears in my eyes.
Right.
That's awesome.
Nice. Hey, Chad and JT. Sorry it took me so long to write you guys, seeing that I've been listening from the very beginning. But basically, I just turned 20 around the same time that I got off probation. So, of course, I decided to fire up the dab rig. But I didn't anticipate to get this high, and I started to get really paranoid and think about all the shitty decisions I've made up to this point. Most recently, getting fired from my telemarketing position at a big insurance agency. Basically, it was a bad trip. I put on nature documentaries to help me calm down, but it didn't work. Then I seriously got a notification that your new pod came out, and I knew you guys could help. What should I do, guys? Help. So this was kind of a time-sensitive one, but
Oh, so that was
but this
during
could
the bad
this
trip?
could happen again. So maybe the advice will still be, helpful.
I wasn't really listening to the question. I was really spacing out during
I
that one.
appreciate your
I
candor.
was thinking about Lollapalooza and the acid. I was
That
having an
happens to us a
acid
lot.
flashback.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do that every.
So why don't you guys
for, like,
answer,
every question?
and I'll try and reverse engineer the question.
No, I do that like every question. I'm like, JT, so you smoke too much weed? And he's like, yeah, basically. I'm
Oh, you
like,
smoked too much weed.
Yeah, I think he's having a bad trip. Am I
Yeah.
right? He fired up the dab rig,
Mm-hmm.
and now he's tripping.
He's looking for how to calm down next time it happens. And I'm the worst at this. My brain
That's
spins
why
and
I
it's hard
have
for me to
a
stop.
French bulldog. Get a pet.
Oh,
Can I tell you, Monkey,
call.
my dog? It happens if I get like too high, which is rare, or when I get high, period. Because to me, I don't have know when to stop. The once a year I do it, And then I'll just like, my emotional support dog, Monkey, is the best thing when you're high because she just wants her belly to be scratched and she's just very grounding. So if you can find a pet that's like really grounding to have around with you, then and just stroke it, then it'll calm you down.
Yeah, I don't really smoke weed either because I can't handle it. So, but I just turn to like funny stuff. I'll watch South Park. That usually gets me in the mood.
Cheech and Chong.
Yeah, Cheech and Chong. Put on something funny.
If I get too high, the thing I do to keep myself from thinking I'm dying or fixating too much on my bad decisions is I go out into public, actually, because it forces me to be a little bit more present. And oftentimes I'll just go do stand-up. Because like if I have to do stand-up, there's no time for me to worry about whether I'm going to die or not because there's bigger embarrassment at my feet. So
the adrenaline counteracts the effects of the THC, maybe?
yeah, and sometimes I think I'm jacking myself too much up and I'm just going to have a harder crash. But I do think like having a thing in front of me that doesn't let me focus on like the bigger problems that there's no way to address anyways, that I can just like, I'm like, all right, just focus on the stand-up set and don't embarrass yourself being too high on stage. And it helps. Yeah.
Yeah, I get paranoid. My whole family, like none of us really dabble.
I just get terrible movie ideas that I write down. And I'm just like, who's the Keebler gnome? What was that?
I did last time I got high. I wrote down like because I was writing down stand-up material. Burritos are funny. I remember that was my note. So I was like, dude,
Burritos are funny though.
Joe Rogan was right. I just unlocked the creative juices.
Yeah. All right, this is a long one, guys. What up, Stokers? Proud Stoker. Can't appreciate enough what you all do. I find myself in a personal conundrum. My ex-girlfriend and I split up 16 months ago. However, we never stopped talking. Over the course of these 16 months, I asked about 9 times that we stopped. The reason for which was I wanted a space to figure out what I wanted. Maybe that meant seeing other people, sure. But overall, I knew I wasn't going to be able to think objectively as long as she was still consistently in my life. Despite the requests, we never stopped. I say we because I like to think I'm self-aware enough to know that at the end of the day, I also didn't follow through with what I was asking for. She would constantly ask to see each other, which I would fight, but eventually cave on. She constantly told me she missed me, which I almost never reciprocated, but the real fault of mine, my own, I believe, was continuing to tell her I loved her at the end of most days. The main reason for doing this was I hated hurting her. Despite the lack of relation, there's still love there. Anyway, after the 9th request that didn't stick, I decided to just do what I wanted anyway, and ended up going on a few dates, one of which has stuck. Don't know where it's going, but I'm being open about it. While we were still talking, as I am, seeing this new girl, I've stopped telling her I love her. I guess my hope was that I wasn't saying not saying that would get the message across, when I should have just been upfront about it. The other night, I got a bunch of texts from my ex telling me she knew I was seeing someone, that I was a liar, and a bunch of other choice phrases. I just can't figure out if they're accurate or not. So am I a bad guy? I can't decide if my continued contact with her was selfless or selfish, as I really do maintain it was to keep her from being sad, not to keep her in my back pocket, so to speak. Well, I do think you were being selfish, and I do think you were keeping her in your back pocket, to be candid with you, dog. But I don't think that makes you a bad guy. I think you were being weak in a way that's very understandable, but I do think there's a better road that you could probably take.
Yeah, I think he's just being human. I don't think he's a bad person.
Yeah.
But I do think that don't kid you. The first thing is you stop kidding yourself that this is to protect her feelings. This is entirely about your insecurity of being alone because you have issues that you don't want to deal with. It's so much easier to keep a relationship going and focus on the problems and the text of that other person, because without that other person, you have to look inward. And for a lot of people, that's very scary. So it's not like you can leapfrog from one to the other, but really all you have to do is be upfront and honest with yourself and say, like, you know, I love you, but I do need to move on. And I just think we should not text for a while. And if you text me, I might come back with a heart, but I think I'm just not going to respond, which doesn't mean I don't love you, but I do have to do this for my own sake. And then maybe find therapy or find friends to talk to, because once that voice is quiet, you're going to have to focus on your own stuff, because my guess is you're going to repeat the same thing in the next relationship because you haven't addressed it.
Yeah, I think it's sort of the pleasing mentality. I mean, you're saying you're trying to protect her, and I think it's, you just don't want to hurt her. But I think the best move for her, like you guys are saying, is you just got to, draw a line in the sand and sort of cut ties, because I think in the end that'll definitely help her the most to get over it, as opposed to just dragging it out so you don't. It actually has the opposite effect of, I think, what he intended. So.
Yeah. What's bro chachos? First off, thanks for the fire pod. I've been listening for 6 months and my stoke levels have risen to astronomical levels. So I have a question about dealing with an asshole roommate. I have a Bulgarian roommate who is a nice guy, but he has this thing where it seems like he has to argue with everything I say. To go along with that, he will make personal attacks at me in social situations to make other people laugh. I'd like to think I have thick skin, but I can't handle this. If I try to ignore him, he goes with the classic, "You mad, bro?" Oh my God. Nothing upsets me more than when people do the "you mad, bro" fucking I am mad tactic. How do I handle this meat bag? Thanks, bros. Mike.
Move out. Why would you choose to spend your entire existence with this person if they behave that way?
Yeah.
There's so many other people in the world and so many apartments. All you have to do is look for one and move, and then just stop hanging out with him. You're not going to change him, and he's obviously keeps doing it because he's getting a reaction out of you.
I concur.
It's good advice. It really is. Because I was like, maybe you could talk to him, but it's like some people are just not.
And also
Cool.
Bulgarian, Russians, they have like a very blunt way of talking. They don't have like the veneer of politeness that Americans have, and a lot of people
Right.
can't handle that. So it's not like you're going to culturally. It's not that it's bad. That's just how they are. Israelis are saying like there's way certain cultures when they translate to English, they just say it like very, you know, like I work out with this Hungarian trainer, and she'd be like, "You can't eat cheat meal. You're too fat." And I'm like, "What?" She's like, "You'll be fat." I never cheat. Don't cheat, or you'll be fat. I do all this work for you, then you cheat. And you're like, okay, no one else would ever say that, but that's why I love her. So, you know, move.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I don't know what the other options are. The only thing I could say is if he asks if you're mad, I think being honest and just saying, "Yeah, I'm mad, you're being annoying," is a valid response, although it could be a little bit awkward. But I think people, they kind of trap you with that, "you mad," because it's embarrassing if you admit you're mad. And like in guy banter, like being mad is like a weakness. But I think if you can own it, it can actually jar the other person a little bit. All right.
Yeah, I've been friends with people who they're like, "This is my sense of humor. I give you shit," you know, and you're just like, but it's annoying. No one's laughing. So I think, yeah, just cut ties.
We almost never give each other shit.
No, because we're from California, not like, you know, East Coast is like.
They're horrible. That's why I moved.
Yeah. They're like,
Fucking suck, kid. You fucking pussy.
All right, last one. What's up, team? First off, I just want to say I'm a big fan of both of you. Like, you two personally are my second and third favorite people out of like actors and athletes and doctors and scholars and everyone. I met Chad when I was going to shred at El Porto and it was my peak. Anyways, I'm just wondering how you can have self-confidence. Like, I have no self-hate, but I also have no self-love. And it could be because I am not hot. But the only person who has said I am not hot is myself. If I'm gonna be honest, most people say I'm like really good looking or whatever. But my mind does not allow me to think that. It is entirely impossible for me to say anything good about myself. I just assume the worst about me, and it makes it hard for me to reach out and talk to people. But if they talk to me first, I'm fine because my mind can't logically doubt they don't want to talk to me, I just assume any friends I want to make or girls I want to talk to don't want anything to do with me. I went through like 6 years of the worst depression and anxiety, but I mostly came out of it. Good for you, dog. This is pretty much the last thing I got to fix. I would really appreciate any wisdom or advice you have or on having any self-worth. Also, I just watched you two on Ellen, and as stoked as I was to see that, I am kind of really disappointed. Like, it is dope that you two have a lot of causes you support, but it seems you have forgotten about the coral. We bleached our hair to bring awareness to coral bleaching, which is like an environmental issue. Right. I might just be an environmental science major, but losing the coral is a legitimate issue that needs support and was something that you used to care so much about.
damn. What was his name?
Colton.
I remember meeting him. I met him at the beach.
Oh, really?
Yeah, El Porto.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you know him.
Yeah, we met.
So let's be honest. Was he good looking or was he really ugly?
Dude, he was good looking. I was with my girlfriend too, and she concurred.
Okay. So he has depression issues or insecurity.
Yeah, and I think he said it's not self-hatred, but I think that possibly is.
And I think people can have pride in like not having self-confidence,
Yeah.
Like you're like, no, I'm not like one of these delusional people who like thinks he's awesome when he's not awesome. But I almost think there's like ego in that too. Like in recovery, there's a phrase like, I'm a piece of shit that the world revolves around. Or like, I don't have anything, but I have more than everybody else. And it's like this way of like being low and high at the same. Does that make sense? Yeah. And I think I might be projecting this on you. It might just be my shit. But I think you might be doing that a little bit. And I think the best thing you can do is just be embarrassed a little bit that you do think you're cool. And it is a little embarrassing, but it's better.
Yeah, I think self-acceptance is a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we all go through that where you're like, I sometimes look back at how much attention I wanted, and I'm like, why did I think I needed that?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't making me any happier. It wasn't making the movies any better. I just liked being the guy. It's like, oh, I love being in the center of attention. I love being in the spotlight. But then I started thinking, well, why? What is it? What do you have to say? What are you going to do with that attention? So then you look back and you're kind of embarrassed and you're like, no, I'm capable. That's me. That's part of who I am. So part of it, once you kind of accept it and you stop criticizing yourself and beating yourself up over it, it doesn't become like a need anymore. But it does sound like this dude's got depression issues. Mm-hmm. So maybe, you know, if he had depression and maybe was on medication, I mean, it sounds like more than just some self-confidence.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah. Because if it's that long, too, if it lasts for, like, years.
Yeah, it's not just being bummed out.
Yeah.
It's just, like, and being kind of mad at everybody. No one understands me. But it's, you know, it's just externalizing the problem on everyone else.
And sometimes when you get the help you need, you'd be amazed at how quickly your outlook can change on the whole
But there's
world.
also dudes that you'll meet, and you'll see this in stand-up. It's crazy. Not just people that are afraid of failure, but people that are terrified of success. Mm-hmm. And that there are some people that it's so much easier to put the world against you because then you're not judged fairly on the open market. You're like, no one likes me. Everyone's an asshole. I'm not going to that party. It's so much easier than that than rather than going out and getting rejected or being told by someone you suck or you need to get better. You know, it's like it's a way of putting up a defense mechanism so that you don't have to like deal with the reality of what people think of you.
I fucking love it. You're right.
No,
It's my psychiatrist, Dad.
Yeah, no.
You're crushing, dude.
You wonder where the psychoanalyst,
Yeah.
Dr. Sheldon Roth,
You're bringing
comes
it,
out
bro.
in me.
No, I loved it. I went to therapy for like a month, and then just having a therapist because
I love it.
He said I had some like self-hatred stuff. He's like, and I was sort of in denial like that too. I was like, no, I'm a happy guy. I love love myself. And he's like, no, you don't. And so once he like said that, having like a professional, it just sort of it started the that was like the medicine I needed to sort of like look inward and then start fixing that.
Yeah.
When a therapist first told me, like, you're mad at your parents, I was like, no, I'm not. I have the best parents in the world. He's like, no. He's like, both things are true. You're mad at your parents. I was like, no, I don't. He's like, yes, you are.
Yeah.
And then when I finally accepted that I was mad at them, I became less mad at them.
Of course.
You know?
Of course.
Yeah.
I love my
Yeah.
parents, but most guys separate from their parents in their 40s.
Right.
Right.
Not teenage years, since their 40s when they're like, well, whoa, I'm an adult. I'm not like a little boy. Leave me
Interesting.
alone.
Yeah.
Do you have to do that? I had to do that.
Yeah.
So I have a great relationship with my parents, but there's a moment where I was like, we're not talking.
Would your dad like butt in too much into like your career choices, like your artistic choices and
Not
stuff
artistic.
like
I mean, look, my parents were like, don't go to fucking grad school for film. Go to undergrad for film. Move to New York City. Move to California.
Good advice.
We'll help you with your rent if you need to charge groceries. I was 30, dead fucking broke, charging groceries to my parents on their
You're
credit
preaching
card.
to the choir here.
When I was like trying to make Cabin Fever and trying to edit it, I was like, you just have to swallow your. So my parents are awesome and supportive that way, but it doesn't mean they don't drive you crazy about certain things, and that you know. But it's part of the relationship with them. You just gotta accept that because you feel bad. We don't want to be mad at our parents, but then you get mad at them for shit.
Yeah. And there's a lot of you love them so much that if you are mad at them, sometimes you just don't want to admit it.
Right. Well, you got to
so
learn
you
to
bury that deep.
You got to learn to express the anger with love.
Yeah.
You got to say it with love. You can't be like, why the fuck? Which is the urge because when we're teens, like, mommy, why would you do that? It's like, just so you know, when you say it like that, it just makes me not want to talk to you because I feel like you're blah, blah, blah. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. They're usually pretty responsive when you approach it in a.
Is it hard to argue with a therapist dad though?
I mean, I love arguing. And so my mom is really good at arguing. And so my dad would just like have me argue with my mom. And he's like, see, that's why we had him. So I don't have to do this with you. But my dad was great with girls. I'd be like, Dad, how come she ignores me? And she says she likes me, and then she ignores me. When I was a kid, I didn't understand anything about women. I still don't. And he was like, well, if you look at her relationship with her father, like my dad kind of psychoanalyzing. And also the crazy ones, like all the crazy kids in the neighborhood, my dad loved them. They were just totally accepted. It's like, well, you look at his father and the mother, and it's perfectly understandable. Like there were no judgments in our house.
That's
so everyone
beautiful.
felt like really calm.
Yeah.
People love my parents. They're very funny. And most people are like, we're your parents. We like them.
Having that advice with girls sounds amazing too.
You'd think I could put it to use. It would have
Yeah.
been way more useful to have a sister. I had 2 brothers, and we're like, thanks, Mom, because we thought that kids were just like really, really. We grew up. We're like, oh, well, girls must be as really into like porn and Iron Maiden as we
Yeah.
are. This is, and horror movies and baseball. I didn't like and then all my friends who were like amazing with girls had 5 sisters.
Yeah.
And understood like when to open a door and when to offer your coat. Stuff that was just like, what, huh?
Yeah.
It took me a minute to catch up.
I've like a lot of guilt over having such a good support system and then pursuing like an entertainment career, like, and then seeing other people who fell to the wayside just because they didn't have that. Did you ever have to deal with any like kind of residual like guilt
No.
over coming from a strong
No, because I worked really hard. Because I was like, okay, this is going to be really, really, really hard, even with that.
Right.
And their failure has nothing to do with me. Just
Yeah.
didn't want to face the rejection. Like, you have to be told. I mean, for 6 fucking years with Cabin Fever, everyone told me, you suck. Nobody wants to see this movie. Horror movies are dead. Horror movies are fucking dead, Eli. It's not the 80s. It's not your childhood. It's 1996. It's 1997. It's 2000. It's 2001. Nobody wants to see a horror movie. It's 2003, Eli. You think anyone wants to see a horror movie? Like, and then you fucking do it, and everyone goes to see it. And you're like, I fucking told you. Like, you just have to be, like, indefatigable. So the whole thing about, like, oh, I feel bad about these people. I have it so good. It's just a way of not focusing on yourself. It's like, what more
Right.
should I be doing?
Right.
Yeah,
It's a waste of energy.
Yeah, my siblings gave me this similar advice, and they're like, if your parents are helping you out, it's because they want you to. They want to help you out.
Right.
Like, they want to, help you succeed. So, yeah, I think the best thing you can do in return is just work as hard as you can and make sure that, you achieve what you're trying to accomplish.
I'm very lucky that we had the crisis on Cabin Fever with the union extorting us and shutting us down and taking all our money, and we had $17,000 in the bank, and the movie was unfinished. I had to come back with an unfinished movie and edit it for free and give away points and beg the money to shoot the extra days. And my dad took $10,000 of his money and then like $100,000, which was like basically his entire life. It was like his retirement, and he fucking gave it to me so I could get through the shoot. And I was just like, oh my God, like my dad will now have to work until he's 100 if this fails. And then we sold him the movie and I doubled his money.
Whoa, let's go.
And the feeling of being like, I could actually pay my dad back the money he invested plus like another $110,000. I was like, now it's like I basically paid for college, and then the profits came in. It was like that feeling of my dad being so happy and be like, wow, I actually got to pay you back. And then after Hostel 2, I bought my parents a house. They were in Boston, and every conversation was like, oh, so-and-so just fell. Aaron Lazar, he broke his hip. He slipped in the ice. Every single doctor was falling and slipping on the ice. And I was like, that's going to be you guys. And none of us are here. My brothers are here. I was like, why don't you move? I'll buy you a house. And I did. So I did with my money. I bought my parents. I moved them out here. My brothers have kids. They're great-grandparents. It's like the whole family came west. And I moved my dad at 7. I got him. He's a professor at Harvard, psychiatry. I was like, I think you should just retire and come to LA and hang out. And he's like, so happy that they did it. And they're like great, and they seem really, really young. And everyone that stayed in Boston in the snow is like old and frail now. It's crazy.
California is nice, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Is it almost like your parents, when you become successful, they feel like they had even a bigger role in it, sort of? Like they're like, oh yeah, I believed in you, I helped you get to achieve your dreams kind of thing?
Yeah.
I feel like that with my parents now, with what we're doing, they're kind of like, it's kind of like the fact that they believed in me and stuff.
They feel like they have
makes
good
it that much
judgment.
sweeter. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's nice.
For them.
It's nice for them. It's like a big moment of pride.
Yeah.
But then what happens is they just start walking up to like Reese Witherspoon. They're like, we're Eli's parents. I'm like, I don't know her. I don't know. I mean, I do, because we're looking at each other awkwardly now in the room. And she's like, hi, I'm Reese. Hi, I'm Eli. But like, you can't just go up. I know it's Sacha Baron Cohen and you think Borat's funny, but you can't just be like, we're Eli's parents. We love Ali. Like, and of course, everyone's nice because everyone sort of relates to parents that way. But the other thing they do is like, like, my mom met Ryan Gosling with me like at a party once, and then after started sending me every press clipping ever on Ryan Gosling, and it's like, oh, I thought you would want to see this. It's about your friend Ryan Gosling. I'm like, Ryan's doing fine, Mom. I love Ryan. He's a great guy. I don't need every press clipping ever on Ryan. Right. I don't need it. And so I'd see Ryan now, and he just laughs. He's like, how's your mom in the press? Like, it's like a joke now. But they do that. They think that everyone in Hollywood's friends, but, oh, yeah, your friend, Tom Cruise. I don't know Tom Cruise, but he's in Hollywood. You're in Hollywood. You're all friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Chad, who is your beef of the week?
My beef of the week is with the new Salesforce tower in San Francisco. Have you seen this?
No.
So some dude decided to build a giant dildo, essentially, in the skyline in San Francisco. It's the tallest building in San Francisco.
And it's not a good-looking dildo.
It's not a good-looking dildo, and I think it ruined the skyline, to be honest.
Wow.
I look at that, I'm like, great, now there's a dildo in the freaking...
Yeah.
They didn't put the time into the design, yeah.
Into researching good dildos.
Yeah, so... but yeah, dude, I just saw it, and I was just like, San Francisco has a beautiful skyline, and you guys kind of tamper with it to build this monstrosity, and I just had to beef with it.
You were mad all weekend about it.
Yeah, we were driving on like the Golden Gate Bridge. I was just like, what the fuck
Yeah.
is that? Because my family's from the Bay Area, So
Oh, yeah. It's personal.
Yeah, it's personal. So, you'd see that skyline and you're just like, I don't know, dude.
Would you like if they just chop the top off of it and just shorten the dildo?
Yeah, I think maybe just like to make it look like a dildo. I think, yeah. Maybe if they made it more pointy or something, like Coit Tower. No, Coit Tower's not pointy. The Transamerica building, that's cool. Or they put like a needle on top of it, but with just like the round top, it's I think it's a shame. So
For sure, dog.
that's my beef.
Dude, my beef of the week is with myself for showing up to Muay Thai class, only my 3rd class, on my phone while I was doing my raps. And I was having like kind of like a Hollywood conversation on the phone, and I was late getting on the mat, and then the instructor came off and he goes, "Hey bro, did someone die?" And I'm like, "No." He's like, "Who are you talking to?" I was like, "My managers." And then he said, "Why don't you come back tomorrow, bro?" And then I grabbed his shoulder and I was like, "I am so sorry." And I really realized no lifetime full of douchey moments, that might have been my douchiest. So I came back the next day on time, did my raps, studied the moves diligently, and I'm sorry to my Muay Thai class. I'm glad there's a place like that in Oasis where, the rules of martial arts supersede any other rules. Have you ever had like a moment like that?
Yeah, I've had the douchey Hollywood moments.
Yeah.
When it happens, you just don't even realize it's happening. It's just you're there and you're in it, and it's kind of beautiful in a way because it's like you've been body snatched and it just happens so naturally, and you're just like making a Hollywood deal on a cell phone in front of a bunch of people waiting for you, and you're just that fucking asshole, and you just sort of own it. You go, yeah, that's me.
It always happens at Muay Thai.
At Muay Thai. My beef of the week is with I don't know if this is, I was going to do like people that kill, like make money off the death of sharks because it's very upsetting. It's happening a lot.
For sure.
But what's really bothering me, if I'm being totally honest, is I upgraded my Apple TV to 4K. So there's like, and I have this like entertainment system where it all goes to this one giant remote. And because when I was married to Lorenza and she's Chilean, she would watch everything with subtitles. So like our Netflix, even though it's my account, has like the subtitles on all the time. So I was trying to watch a scary movie and like I couldn't figure out how to get the subtitles off. And then it said in parentheses, monster breeds. I was watching Ritual. It was like monster runs through woods. I was like, well, now I know it's a monster.
Right.
And I got so fucking mad that I upgraded the damn 4K thing. And I was just like, I can't, like they ruined, I didn't know what was in the woods. If it's a cult, now I know it's, which is 20 minutes into the movie. It's not a big spoiler, but like I can't get the Netflix, and now I can't even watch Netflix because I only watch subtitles. I might as well just subscribe to a text service that just sends you text messages of dialogue because my eye goes to the subtitle.
Yeah.
I can't take it off.
Is it one of the, have you tried scrolling up? Not to be a know-it-all. I think if you scroll up,
I
if you
tried
need me
it.
to, I'll cruise over, dog.
Do it, please.
I'll fix it up for you, dog.
I
I think
need
I
it.
can do it because my roommate does the subtitles.
Yeah, I need
too.
it. I need one of the kids to do it.
Chad, who is your babe of the week?
My babe of the week is our choreographer, Chrissy. Have we done her before?
I don't know, but she's the best, man. I love her.
Yeah, so we love to dance. We like to, in some of our videos, we like to break it down. It's sort of like our hidden passion. And Chrissy just gives us fire dance routines. So I just want to give her a shout out. She's the best. She's so patient with us, and she helps us perfect it. She cheers us on through the entire shoot. And she's just a freaking babe in that respect. So Chrissy, what up? Thank you for teaching us how to dance. You helped JT master the body roll, which was legit. And I love shoulder pops, all that kind of stuff. We're just breaking through.
Oh,
Dude,
dude.
If you ever want to do a dance with us,
Oh, Eli, you can move, dude.
I've
Dude.
been to some bar mitzvahs.
Oh,
back in the day.
dude.
I have a whole poster in my garage of the New York City Breakers with the fresh moves you can learn.
Oh,
dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you ever want to dance with us.
I was nervous there for a second. I was like, is he not vibing on our dance stuff? And then
No,
you
I could
started
pop and lock
dancing.
and robot. Yeah.
Dude, she's the best. Dude, my baby of the week is my 2 mini fridges that I have stacked up in my kitchen as one full fridge almost. And it's because they're in an existential, they could be reaching their end. Because one of my roommates is moving out, and now it's like a reckoning of like, is our apartment good enough? Is our stuff good enough for me and the remaining roommate? And my GF, who's the best, wants me to get a regular fridge. But I don't cook. So I like having the 2 mini fridges on top of each other. I had the 1 mini fridge, then Joe moved in. He had a mini fridge, so we stacked them because it's funny. And, maybe that joke's run its course over 3 years. But I don't need a big fridge, you know? Like, I'm not trying to keep up with the Joneses. Because guess what? Jones can't keep up with you if he can't predict where you're going. So I'm not making moves that make sense to Jones. Because then that's how you beat Jones, by just staying focused on you. So the 2 mini fridges, they look good. I don't cook. I'm happy with them.
You seem happy.
Thank
It
you.
looks good.
Did you have names for them?
No. There's the black one and the white one. I'm pretty
We'll
creative.
Let the audience fill in the names from there.
Yeah.
I guess my babe of the week, it's kind of a tie, which is sort of cheating, but it's the truth. And one of them is Claudio Simonetti, who's the lead singer of Goblin, who did all the music for Dario Argento's movies. And they played live on Monday night, and Claudio is the nicest dude and got me tickets. And I went down and saw him, and they played Deep Red live, which is one of my favorite movies. And then all like the greatest hits, like Dawn of the Dead and Demons and Suspiria. And I just got like very emotional because I realized how much of my childhood and my like absolute love of horror was tied up in these movies and in this music. And then I saw him after, and it's like I see him once a year when he comes to town to play, and he's just the nicest dude. So I was like and I've been listening to like Rockin' Goblin all week because of it. And then my GF, who came into town from Italy and just like fills my house with like warmth and love. And she's Italian and has like Italian coffee and brought like the best Italian coffee from Naples. So I'm very happy.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's
man.
awesome.
Chad, who is your legend of the week?
My legend of the week is the sun god Apollo. Yeah, I love the sun. I love getting bronzed by the sun. I love getting a fresh shot of vitamin D. I'm talking about the molecule. Ellen gave me a nice zing. She talked about my tan, said it's not up to par. And that was the perfect zing to get me back out there and to work hard before winter comes. So I just want to give a shout out to Apollo. I'm going to be out there. I'm going to be bronzing. I'm going to be crisp. I'm going to saute myself. I'm going to send Ellen. I don't have her number. Somehow.
You could tweet her, probably.
I'll tweet her and I'll be like, look how tan I am now. Because
Exactly.
you motivated me.
That's awesome.
You gave me
dude.
the zing I needed.
You're going to be so tan in that photo.
Because I took it for granted. If I'm going to be honest.
You're
I was shocked she said you weren't tan. That's like a third rail thing, like we don't touch.
Yeah.
Is it third rail? Or is
Yeah,
fourth
it is
rail?
the third rail.
Okay.
But I love honesty, though.
Yeah, that's true. And you wore it well, dude.
Yeah.
It's weird. You had like a Dr. Phil moment on Ellen.
She really cut to the core of me. She got to, she didn't sugarcoat it, which I respect.
My legend of the week is Vampire Weekend. I saw them last night at the Hollywood Bowl. I'm not even like a huge fan of their music, but after the show, I was like a gigantic fan. It just like deepened my respect for them because like I think they did what good authors do, which is where like after you read their book, it reworks your brain to think like they do. And like by the end of the concert, I felt like I had a Vampire Weekend brain. Like that jaunty guitar that they have, it's like the same sound in every song. It's like do 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 do. Not quite, but it's something like that. And you're like, you get kind of annoyed with the riff, but then they build so much elegant stuff around it. Like it goes in so many different directions, each song. And they have like ballads and hard rock songs. And I was like, whoa, this is like a full like vision from these guys. And it really impressed me. And you can just tell they're all smart. You can tell they get around and they're like, dude, that's cool. Like they're all good individual musicians. And like one of them has like a good riff. And then the other one's like, dude, I'll add this onto it. And they're like, nice. And then one of them's like, and then maybe, nah, never mind. And then they keep it there and it works.
I had a backstage moment at Coachella. I had when you're a Snake the Artist pass, and I was walking around and we saw Vampire Weekend, and there was their trailer. They had like a little white picket fence, and Danny DeVito was sitting outside in a lawn chair with sunglasses on.
Whoa.
With his feet up. And he was just like smoking a cigar. It was just like, I'm Danny DeVito, and I'm in the fucking Vampire Weekend camper, and you're not. And we're like, wow. He's like, this is like a real actual Vampire Weekend for him. He's there all weekend. It was very exciting. Nice. So I don't know if you saw DeVito at the concert.
I didn't see him.
He's a little short though.
He's tough to see at the bowl.
Yeah, a lot of people are. I gotta say, I mean, now that you mentioned him, I had a lot of legends, but we gotta go with BP. Gotta go with Brad Pitt because he was just that cool. He was that awesome. I don't speak of him often because it sounds like super tabloidy and name droppy, but while we're on the subject and the vibe, I have to think that like someone that has that much experience, who's really played the long game, who didn't take stupid roles and would like rather take roles in movies like Snatch and just do really cool, weird, offbeat character stuff, and became like, you know, it's like aging into like being a Paul Newman kind of icon. And I loved him in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And he's just a sweet, I don't know him well. I mean, every time I see him, he's just a sweet dude. So he is as legendary as you'd imagine.
We talk about him a lot. So to have that corroborated by you is pretty impactful.
Yeah, we're huge fans. I just keep watching those Once Upon a Time in Hollywood interviews. I'm just like,
my favorite line in that movie,
cool.
There's so many lines in that movie that are so good, but when they're watching the episode with the FBI, my new favorite one is when DiCaprio goes, that guy's a fucking prick. And I just laughed. I was like, you never fucking see that. Two actors watching their own TV show commenting on what a dick one of the other guys was. I was like, that fucking caught it, man. That is exactly what it's like. That's what actors do. They're like, the guy's a fucking prick.
Besides
like this poor extra who did this episode in 1969, now 50 years later, DiCaprio's making fun of him. It's great.
Hilarious.
Besides Once Upon a Time, what's your favorite Pitt performance?
Floyd. I love Seven. Is fucking amazing. He's incredible. But fucking, Floyd for me, he's in the movie for 5 minutes. And he just...
And you're talking about True Romance.
True Romance, yeah. But also California.
Oh,
early
interesting.
In California. That was the first time I was like, put your shit back in, Adele. When I saw him like being a dirty serial killer, I mean, I love him. Thelma Louise, Johnny Suede, all that stuff. But like California was the one I was like, whoa, this dude is way darker than I fucking realized.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. What a weird detour that must have been for him, being such like a pretty boy. And
oh my God,
that
Thelma and Louise,
like,
the hottest thing ever. And then he does this movie where he's like this fucked up serial killer. Everyone's like, how's a pretty boy gonna pull it off? And it's like, nope, he was amazing. He was legitimately amazing.
And Duchovny's David
Duchovny.
Right. Yeah, it was a cool movie. Chad, what is your quote of the week?
My quote of the week is Alan's toast from The Hangover. Hello. How about that ride in? I guess that's why they call it Sin City. You guys might not know this, but I consider myself a bit of a loner. I tend to think of myself as a one-man wolf pack. But when my sister brought Doug home, I knew he was one of my own. And my wolf pack grew. It grew by one. So there were two of us in the wolf pack. I was alone in the wolf pack, and then Doug joined in later. And 6 months ago, when Doug introduced me to you guys, I thought, wait a second, could it be? And now I know for sure. I just added 2 more guys to my wolf pack. 4 of us wolves, running around the desert together in Las Vegas, looking for strippers and cocaine. So tonight I make a toast. Blood Brothers.
Nice, dude. I'm nervous all of a sudden. My quote is from Primary Colors. Do you like that movie?
I do not.
You don't like that movie?
I don't not like it, but I don't like it because I haven't seen it, but I haven't seen it because I'm not interested in it.
Do you not like political movies?
I like some political movies.
Like, do you like The American President?
It's all right.
Interesting.
I like Bulworth.
Okay,
I like
cool.
All the President's Men. I mean, I like some political movies.
But you don't like the ones where they make the president look like a nice guy?
Dick, it was a little soft for me.
Right.
It's interesting. I remember on Quiz Show they were talking about how that was going to be Redford as the American president, and then when they cast Michael Douglas, I was like, I kind of wished it was Redford.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say. I'm biased.
Interesting. I don't know if Redford would have been as relatable as Douglas was.
Probably not. He's not a relatable human.
Yeah.
He's like from another world of superstardom.
Yeah.
He's just like, oh, it's Robert Redford. He's an alien.
Yeah.
I'm just merely observing him.
I didn't know he was almost the dude.
Yeah.
Dude, that's interesting to think about.
Yeah.
All right, so my quote is from Primary Colors, where John Travolta plays like a Stanton is his name. He's running for president. He's basically Bill Clinton, and it was written by an anonymous Bill Clinton staffer, the book. And then so in this scene, the main character Henry is in a donut shop with John Travolta playing Stanton, and Stanton's talking about the sad guy who works at the donut shop, and it kind of explains why he wants to be president. He's talking about, he says, he doesn't complain, doesn't do anyone any harm, aching to do good. God, if you let a man like that go down, you don't deserve to take up space on this planet, do you?
That's a good one.
And he's kind of a piece of shit in the movie. Like, he's charismatic, and it seems like he can bring the country in a better direction, but you see all of his weaknesses too. So it's interesting that he can be such a bad guy, but then still have this like aching heart for the underdog. And I just found it very compelling.
I got to watch it. I had actually forgotten about it.
Do you like Mike Nichols?
I love Mike Nichols.
Okay, I think you'll like it then.
Yeah.
And that scene's well directed, like the way that they frame
Do
the
we have
coffee
to do a
shop.
Mike Nichols quote?
Do you want to do one?
We could.
Do you have a good one?
I mean,
I'm curious to see what movie you go with.
I would go with Myrtle. Her name's Myrtle.
What's that from?
Carnal Knowledge.
Oh,
when
dude, I've
like
never seen
Jack
that.
Nicholson fucks Art Garfunkel's girlfriend because Art Garfunkel was like the hot movie star, and Jack Nicholson's the buddy, and then he's like making up a lie, and he's like, "What was her name?" And he's like, "Myrtle. Her name's Myrtle." And I just thought, like, was that like a hot girl name back in 1970?
Is that a good movie?
I love Carnal Knowledge. He did it after The Graduate. It's a fucking great movie.
What's your-
It's Anne Margaret, Jack Nicholson, Art Garfunkel. It's so good.
What's your favorite Jack performance?
I mean, obviously The Shining, but I loved One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I mean, The Last Detail.
That's my favorite.
Last Detail is amazing.
The
but
bar
also,
scene.
I like King of Marvin Gardens. The movie that fucking blew me away with Jack, that I was like, this could be my life if I'm not careful, is Five Easy Pieces.
Right.
Five Easy Pieces is a movie that stopped me in my tracks when I was just like, oh my God.
Just like a disaffected
So it was
smart
a guy who's like someone who's really smart who throws away their talent and just fucking constantly runs away. Someone who has a gift at something and is from like an educated family and is just so self-destructive. They just like can't face reality. They can't face responsibility, and they just throw all their talent away and just hide by like continually running. It's just one of those things, like that's your worst fear of becoming that. I was going to quote, that guy's a fucking prick. Do you have to quote a movie?
No, it can be anything.
Yeah.
Can I quote? This is a real quote that I heard from RZA. I heard so much amazing wisdom from RZA, Making Man with the Iron Fist. But the best thing that he told me that stuck with me forever was, I was talking to him about like fucking like crime. We talked about everything growing up and like what it was like and Staten Island and everything. And he's like, you know how to get rid of it's like. And I was talking about someone's like different crazy or people getting killed. He's like, you know how to get rid of someone. I was like, what? He's like, you really want to get rid of someone. Like, you want to get rid of him. I go, yeah. He goes, you lend that motherfucker money. You will never see him again. He's like, man, I got cousins. I lend him $5,000. I never see those motherfuckers. They too ashamed. They're too ashamed. And I was like, that is the best fucking straight wisdom I've ever heard. Don't have someone killed. Lend them $10,000 and you will never see them for the rest of your life because they're too embarrassed.
Yeah.
It's like, that's it.
RZA.
You want to get rid of someone, lend them money.
What's your quote of the week for getting after? Or we have a buzzword of the week for getting after it.
I need to think of one. Let's see.
I'll go quick. My Australian girlfriend told me in Australia, when you're like amped on a good day, you say it's a bonza day. And she said I couldn't say it like without inflection. Like you can't just say bonza. You got to say bonza.
That's a good
I
day.
like that.
Bonza is my phrase.
Me? Let's squat the keg.
Dude, you're so good, dog. Eli, do you have one?
What do I have to do?
It's just like you just come up with like a phrase for like we're gonna party tonight, and it could just be a substitute. Instead of saying we're gonna party tonight, you say like let's get bonza or let's squat the keg.
Let's knock boots with Hunter S. Thompson.
Oh. I'm like trying to think of one that actually happened. Let's get really fucked up, and I hope we don't have to get drug tested with Keanu Reeves on Wednesday.
Yes,
Yeah.
dude. Yes.
That
I
actually
want
got
to
me
party
really
right
fired
now.
up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm fucking fired up now, dog.
I like that a lot.
Well, how about just we don't have a drug test next week? Let's fucking go.
You gotta throw Keanu in there.
Yeah, we're not getting drug tested with Keanu next week.
Yeah.
Let's go.
And then I always ask, who do you think's the smartest person that ever lived?
Nikola Tesla.
Okay.
Why? Who are you gonna say?
I don't really have an answer.
Dude, I like Nikola Tesla. I mean, we've
He conceived the internet. He figured out the speed at which
Yeah.
electricity. Like, there was actually nobody smarter than him ever.
Yeah. People have said Newton, then like Shakespeare, Einstein, but you're the first Tesla. But when you bring it up,
But most
he's
people
a
go
beast.
scientists.
Most people go scientists like physicists.
Yes.
Yeah. I like Tesla though.
Like Ronnie James Dio.
Who's that?
Doc and Ronnie James Dio.
Don't know him.
Dio, who's lead singer of Black Sabbath.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Before Ozzy?
It's after Ozzy.
Oh, okay. What happened to Ozzy? They
Went
booed him?
solo.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. All right.
Is that it?
I think you did everything.
All right.
Well, Eli, thank you so much for joining us. We're big fans of your movies.
Fans of you
Yeah.
guys. I love what you guys are doing.
Oh, thank
I've
you,
seen it
man.
all. I've been following everything.
Thank you,
Really
man.
enjoying it.
Dude, thank you.
You were
Yeah.
fantastic, man. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for doing it.
I've been watching Hostel. Like all my college buddies are gonna be pumped because we watched Hostel 1 and 2
That's cool.
multiple times in college.
Love that. That's great.
And,
That's what it's for.
Yeah, loved it. So, dude, thank you for
I
joining
wanted
us.
my movies to have like drinking games made after them.
Do you think it's harder? I have one more heavy question.
Yeah.
And I've been thinking
Hit
about
me.
this because I have a lot of friends in comedy who are struggling with it right now. Like, is it harder to have a relationship in LA than other places?
There is no relationship. The relationship is the work.
Right.
And once you accept that, and once the other people, everyone's like, that's it. If you're going to make it in comedy, that is the relationship, period. There's no other relationship. And if you want a relationship, you're going to find another occupation. And that's the truth. And nobody wants to admit it. And relationships do suffer. And I'm not saying you can't meet someone, but your relationship is to the work because you're not going to be happy until you get it. If you really have that dream, you can't be happy in a relationship unless you're happy with yourself. You're never going to be happy with yourself unless you're giving 1,000% to everything. And you have to constantly be writing jokes, thinking of material, working on stuff, sitting at comedy clubs. I didn't have a relationship until I was like 35. I was like, I'm going to make movies. And I dated girls and would hook up between movies. But literally, I was like, I will never have a girlfriend because I'm always just going to go. And that's why I was like, okay, well, maybe we'll just make movies together and then we'll be married. And then even after 2 movies, after Death Wish and House of the Clock, I'm like, you know what? It sucks being married and being apart from each other. So let's just split up. But we're not going to be happy unless we're doing what we love. So what's the point? It's not even a question. I didn't mean to break up your relationship.
No.
Like what
You need
I
someone
like
that's
it.
understanding. But
I
it's
like
just
it.
like your relationship is your work.
No, my GF
That's
gets it. She's cool. She's so supportive. Yeah, but it's early.
It's easy now.
Right.
It's easy now.
Dude, by the way,
I'll enjoy it while it's easy.
Exactly.
Yeah. And try not to make it harder.
by the way, my dad and I, we love going to see Bruce Willis movies. And
I
my-
love that.
My dad's a surgeon. So
Oh,
we went to see
wow.
Death Wish together.
That's
and he
so
was
cool.
because it's such a good revenge.
Fantasy.
He was so pumped. He
So
reminded
life taker gets to be a lifesaver,
Yeah.
becomes a life taker. I love that. Everybody's
Yeah.
dad loves Bruce Willis movies. That's
Yeah.
really cool. That's
He-
exactly what I wanted.
Do you worry about the morality of movies ever? Like all this hoopla about Joker
No.
being like
No.
encouraging to incels? Is it
No.
just blown
The
up
incels
critics?
yeah, of course. People need something to write about. They need a story that people are going to read. That's it. Nobody
call.
cares. Literally nobody cares. Everyone's just going to go to the movies and have fun.
Have you seen it yet?
No, I'm dying to see it. I want to see it like tonight,
Oh,
maybe.
yeah, it's coming out tonight.
Yeah, I'm going to see it this weekend for sure.
I got to see Ad Astra and Joker.
Yeah.
I saw it, Astra.
Good?
It's a little underwhelming. It's good.
To me, it sounds like a movie about Ed Asner. So I'm just like, do
That
I want to
might
go
have
see
been
Ed
better.
Asner for
I
2 hours?
I like the director a lot. I like James Gray a lot.
James Gray's a good dude. I see him at the gym a lot.
He seems like a smart guy too. I hear him always like talking about
He's
opera on podcasts and stuff.
Very smart
Yeah.
and very funny and very cool. And
But
very
there's heavy duty,
curmudgeon-y.
blunt voiceover throughout the whole movie.
Yeah. If you're into Brad, I guess
He's great.
smoke a blunt and then you
Yeah.
enjoy the blunt voiceover.
Dude, we were thinking about what is Stoke. I was going to say Brad Pitt's hair in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
It's amazing.
It's pure Stoke.
It's so good.
All right.
On that note,
All right, thank you guys for
Thanks,
listening.
guys. that was so fun.
That was fun.
Oh,
Thanks,
thank
man.
you, man. You're amazing.
All right, this was great.
Yeah.
Let's head out.
I like those questions at the end, too.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
If you need advice, these guys